With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Oh man, guys, I just had the craziest dream. After 24 hours of GT3 action at Spa over the weekend, I just had a dream that we were back at Spa for even more racing. Ugh. Oh my god, it's not a dream, it's true! Welcome to round 5 of the PRL GT3 series here in 2023 Season 3, live from the virtual Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. Hi everybody, Joey Tebbin here on the other side of the booth this week as Arjuna is on the other side of the world, but don't fret, I'm joined by Super Sub Justin Prince this week, and be filling in here. Justin, welcome back to virtual Spa again. For some drivers it is a nightmare, for some drivers it's a dream, but either way, we're back at Spa for even more GT3 racing tonight.
Yes, indeed, and with the very helpful time of having Spa Day this past weekend, a lot of these drivers with Spa Day today have a lot of preparation, already a lot of notes to be able to know what to handle and what they need to be able to do when they go to the Spa. Here's the thing though, points on the line if you're battling for the championship in PRL, so a little bit of different stakes on hand for when you get out of the Spa and hope to be relaxed. You do not want to be those burned by the mud piles from trying to relax.
Yeah, I hope you're not too wrinkly at the end of all of this. We're reaching the halfway point in the season here, Justin. It's a season split by Belgium. We go to Spa this week. Next week we go to Zolder, and we're truly in championship mode, going to the final 5 rounds of the season. Road Atlanta, an old classic for the GT3s. Then the historic layout of Barcelona, which ironically isn't really that historic. It's closer to the one they actually run in the real world now. And then 2 real wild cards to end the season at Le Mans and at Phillip Island. Of course, both tracks that a lot of drivers will have GT3 experience at, more so at Le Mans. But in this sprint racing format, those are going to be 2 very, very different races to close the season, Justin.
Yeah, to say the very least, the pressure is on by the time you get up to French countryside and to Phillip Island. But this middle portion of the campaign, still very Grand Prix-esque when it comes to how you handle the racetracks, with so many traditional, or rather more so traditional-ish / modern Grand Prix style layouts. You still need to be able to execute all these types of tracks, though. Not one fully in the same where you can just say, let's take this setup and take it to here.
And so far, executing at multiple different types of tracks, it has been championship leader Errol Urexo. He's done a fantastic job so far this season. Finally got the chance to win his first race a couple of weeks ago at Fuji, and he's basically had the championship lead since race 2 when he got that win. But Greg Doucette, very much within touching distance. He has found a new level of consistency this season. He's had some great results, came close to winning at VIR last week. Can never count out Greg Doucette to get his first win. Sully Saad as well, searching for his first win. Eric Kulaga, kind of shockingly in 4th in the Ford GT3. Hasn't necessarily had the race-winning pace he had last season in the Ford, but he's still holding that consistency that got him so close to the championship last season, still holding on to 4th ahead of Steven Martinez. Then you've got John Jones, Ray Dominguez, and Matt Arnold, all deeper in the field, deeper in the order. They all have 1 race win each. It's been 4 races, 4 wins. All 3 of those guys looking for a little bit more consistency to get back in the championship hunt, as is Jared Keane, as is Buck Hamilton. Then when we take a look at the team's championship, it is a little bit less close at the top. Vulture Motorsports, the armada of GT3 Fix, really holds a dominant lead right now, over 70 points over Throttle Thursday. Vulture Motorsports North, not quite within touching distance of their fellow team, the South team, but Vulture Motorsports either way scoring big points so far this season with some of the best drivers in the series, namely championship leader Errol Urexoy, scoring a whole load of points. SRT, Sport Green, and SGE Esports, they're definitely in the fight for second. And then the likes of E3 Motorsports, Team Beef, Racing Mate Scuderia, they've all had pace this season. All those teams have, or one of those teams has won races this season, but not quite the consistency wasn't quite there to fight for the team's championship. But now that all the bookkeeping is out of the way, we can get into qualifying, but we do have one more bit of bookkeeping to do before we can truly get into qualifying here. We've got to thank all the people who make all of this PRL action possible here on RaceSpotTV. First and foremost, Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision 5 coupon code. This coverage is also brought to you by Racebox Sim Racing. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, their button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit RaceBoxSimRacing.com and also get a 5% discount, also using the Precision 5 coupon code. The Butt Kicker. Butt Kicker products provide an incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat with the Butt Kicker. Mecha Sim Hardware is a small company from the Czech Republic, and their goal is to produce high-quality sim racing hardware. If you're looking for a high-end pedal set, handbrake, or sequential shifter, visit Mecha Sim Hardware's eShop right now to get you up to speed and check them out. Moradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For more information, visit moradness.com. And new for this season, it's Mr. Hedge Sim Racing Photography. Mr. Hedge iRacing Photography capture your finest, proudest, or simply worst moments from your hobby in up to 8K resolution. A great addition to any sim room. And all of these drivers can be looking to possibly have some of those additions to their sim room. Mr. Hedge giving some of the prizes to the drivers at the end of the season. Right now we see one of the fan favorite liveries in the field, of course, Team Beef, always supplying the fun. Justin, always getting us nice and hungry with the food themes. The Rainbow Cone / Buona sponsored entry currently sits 25th though for Roy Brown. He's looking for more speed.
Yeah, fair bit back in this 38 car field. Pretty large, in fact, for the drivers tonight. A lot of newcomers with some of the registration we were talking about earlier tonight opening up for some of the drivers. It's going to be intriguing to see which drivers in turn come on in, but also which drivers are able to try and battle it out for race wins such as tonight. After all, the pace around tracks like this, 5 seconds the difference already, and half the field, mind you, with that new Porsche still amongst those very consistently running the most consistent around the circuit.
Last season's champion was Gary Brown. We called him Uptown Gary Brown by the end of the season. He used to be Downtown Gary Brown, and then he started winning. We might have to start calling Roy Brown Uptown Gary Brown here if he can get some speed up here. Does find 2/10 as he crosses the line. Not quite going to be the speed he needs, though, to move up the order. Errol Urexoy, your championship leader, very much on the wrong foot here. 0.8 of a second off Ray Dominguez with 5 minutes left to go in qualifying. Errol's still got a strong lead in the championship, but he does not want to be beaten by a second in qualifying. That's going to destroy the confidence a little bit.
I would have called that the back foot, though. It's still in the front row. But still, I can understand the point of view with Vulture Motorsports. The downside is no draft to be able to pull him along on the straightaways. Teammates like Steven Martinez still a fair bit back, in fact. And while some drivers do well because they're able to get that clean air in the corners in Sector 2 and 3, you need that drafting help in the first sector. Urexoy just starting off 217.7s, I should say. Again, not much of an improvement, a couple 100s.
Yeah, that's not going to be enough. He's going to hope to get, I think, a little bit of a draft from somebody because this is open qualifying. That's kind of a unique thing on iRacing to have open qualifying in a field this big. If you have teammates, if you have some help, you can get a big bunch of help from the draft ahead. John Jones, though, not really getting any help up ahead. It's actually looking like he's going to run into some slower traffic up ahead. But Justin, if you can get a huge draft down the Kemmel Straight, that might be where you need to bring down some of those 0.8 of a second.
Yeah, it's critical, but also making sure in turn that driver in turn backs off, so to speak, by the time you reach the middle sector, because if you're tucked up near or behind somebody, that actually holds you up a bit because of that dirty air effect, but also the chance of having to slow up that extra little bit instinctually to those up in front of you in the pack. John Jones, you've seen that, for example, just followed him off into the sand trap, double toe.
Indeed he is. Not going to be a big day for Mr. Jones in qualifying. He's not going to, well, he will actually be able to get back out and go for one more lap if he wants to, because it is open qualifying. As long as you cross the line to start your lap before the clock hits 0, you will be allowed to finish your lap. Errol Urexoy still out on track right now, just trying to find a little bit more speed. In the last couple seconds, he's been kicked off the front row by a race winner this season, Matt Arnold. Errol only needs about 30 thousandths of a second to dump him off the front row here. Through Stavolo, getting blinded by the sun, Justin. These time settings, not the kindest to the drivers. They come out of Stavolo in multiple corners on this track. They're literally being blinded.
Very, very, very later in the evening, mind you, too, and that can affect some of the visibility, because it really depends on your settings. Was discussing this actually with the driver with a similar circumstance where there was sun shining down the front straightaway at an oval. And depending on how strong of a computer you have, that can either be barely anything or you can be blind into that section.
Here comes Errol Urexoy across the line, doesn't improve. You see Buck Hamilton a little bit deeper in the order, does indeed improve. 0.8 of a second picked up by him, I believe, or at least taking him up into 8th position. Dale Peterson doing a great job in qualifying here in the Ferrari. Not necessarily the car you've wanted in this series over the course of the season. It's been Porsche and BMW that have been doing all of the winning so far, but Dale Peterson loves his Ferrari. He's been in this Ferrari for many seasons. The paint scheme hasn't changed once, which I love, because who doesn't love a little bit of highlighter yellow? He's comfortable in this car, and he's doing pretty well with it here at Spa. It's a good match.
And sometimes you talk about so much about the BOP, talk about what car is better at what type of racetrack. BMW is very consistent everywhere, same for the Porsche. But the Ferrari does have that raw power down the straightaways we've seen over the years. And that's why so many drivers still stick to it. It was one of the most popular cars on the service, after all, at this class about 5 years ago. After all, as well, Peterson, most comfortable out of all of them in that car type. The nearest drivers to him in that same car, still a few 100s back on the pylon, and a majority of those Ferraris in the back half.
Big lap there for Sully Saad, puts himself up on row number 2. But now it's a race against the clock for Dale Peterson. Clearly there is still time on the track. We're seeing big lap times being jumped up everywhere. I saw Ryan Chandler get a big jump up the board. Sully Saad found a lot of time. Buck Hamilton found a lot of time in the Ferrari. But can Dale Peterson recreate it hard onto the brakes, into the bus stop, one tight left, one tight right, on the throttle to the finish line, which isn't the start line. We'll get into that a little bit later. But Dale Peterson not waiting any time whatsoever. He finds 0.3 of a second, but the lap didn't count.
Yep, had it off track, so we'll have to do it again. We'll definitely have to do it again because they're almost out of time. Basically, if you haven't left the pit lane already, you're likely not finishing up your qualifying run. But Buck Hamilton needing to find a little bit more to get the top 10, 13-100s back in Martinez.
He's going to start this lap. Your eyes don't deceive you. Buck Hamilton has not broken the sound barrier. He hasn't actually done a 106, although that would be rather amazing. He does cross the line in the nick of time, though, and he's going to be the last driver, I believe, to get his final lap in. Brett Pancari coming out of the Cord Paul Ferreira here, having a great run so far this season. He's had some great results, currently sits P6. See if he can maybe jump up into the top 3. Only needs a couple tenths.
I'm not going to lie, this paint scheme makes me uncomfortable. I'm not saying that because it's not only a Dodge paint scheme on a BMW, but because I'm so used to Brent Pancari driving with the Peach cars that it's almost a shock to see him in a normal race car.
Brett Pancari always, subverting expectations. Remember back in the PRL NASCAR Cup Series, and I believe in FTF for that matter, he ran a Peugeot next-gen car. So Brett Pancari always loves to have a little bit of fun. You can never predict what this guy's going to do.
Yeah, Cosman and Enshu, I believe, designed that paint scheme, but not able to improve on the time. Still able to keep in front of Peterson, though, on the board. Just a couple of drivers just having that chance really to finish out, though. And keep in mind, track position so critical. That's why I think anyone who's even on the track, we haven't really seen them just dive to the pit lane. Bowers amongst still saying, I've got to try and see if I can do anything without spinning the car like that.
Big wiggle there for Michael Fowler. One of the new drivers here today, by the way. Signups did just recently reopen, as they always do in the PRL. When drivers don't show up for the first 4 rounds, their sign-up places are opened up. And the likes of Michael Fowler, Dennis Faircloth, and a few others took advantage of that. We'll see them on the grid now here. Jeff Carollo does improve a little bit, or at least I thought he would. Actually 0.2 slower once the timing updated there. Buck Hamilton, saw him have a big jump a couple of minutes ago, up to P11. Has since been dunked out of the top 10 though. See if he can find a couple more thousandths of a second. He only needs 12 of them to beat Steven Martinez. Hard on the brakes once more into the bus stop. See if he can get a better exit than Michael Fowler did in that Porsche off the final part. Get on the throttle hard. Don't get any oversteer. Here comes Buck Hamilton. He's not actually going to get a lap time in because he didn't make the line in time.
Oh, actually, technically a 2:18.3, no improvement, but regardless, I just noticed one thing I think it's worth mentioning. The bodywork, potentially if you pick up some scrapes, Martinez showcased these drivers are actually ripping so loudly across the curbs that they're actually damaging the rear end of some of the Ferraris. That could be something to watch for later.
You do have to make sure not to clonk those curbs too hard. But we are in for a titanic battle up the front because 3 out of the 4 winners so far this season start 1, 2, 3. Ray Dominguez takes a dominant 3rd pole of the season, 0.8 of a second over Matt Arnold. Championship leader Errol Urextoy sits 3rd alongside Sally Saad, and one of the new signups, Peter Mahler, makes his PRL debut alongside Brett Pancari. Row number 2, Dale Peterson in the Ferrari doing a great job repping that mark, and the inaugural winner of this season, John Jones, won at Watkins Glen. He starts P8. Reagan Chandler, one of his best qualifyings that I can remember, starts P9 alongside Steven Martinez. Then it's Buck Hamilton and his Ferrari versus Eric Kulaga, our favorite Ford holdout. Matt Dinsmore started on the front row last week. This week, he's down an unlucky 13th alongside Angelo Veloz. He's going to hope to survive turn 1 this time out. Michael Fowler, a new sign-up alongside Nicholas Karangis. This is a very green row number 8. Then it's a blue Ferrari of Michael Kulaga alongside Jared Keane. Down in P19, Felix Feliz not going to be too happy with that alongside Jeff Carollo. Greg Doucette starts alongside a very interesting case here. That is Ryan Chandler, but that is not the Ryan Chandler you're used to. That's a second Ryan Chandler with 1 N in his name, completely unrelated to the Chandler brothers. It's a whole mess. We'll get into that later. Roy Brown and Andrew Venaro start alongside each other on row number 12. Then there's the second Ryan Chandler. As I said, completely unrelated, not going to get confusing whatsoever. He starts alongside Christopher Rhines. Then it's Baron Hilton and Sean Mulholland on row number 14. It's the admin of the PRL oval side, Charles Sumner, doing his road course racing here this week alongside 30th placed Rodrigo Morales. Then it's Waldo Walden and Dennis Faircloth, Glenn Vanko, Jason Bridges, and then Loaded Dice Racing locks out row number 18 with Dallas Sullivan and Alan Dice. Those are two more of our oval stalwarts. Then David Morse and Jack Stevenson round out a 38-car field here at Spa, Justin. That's a lot of cars. It's a big track, but that's always a lot of cars, especially once we file into Lake Calm on the first lap, because we do not start at the traditional Spa-Francorchamps start-finish line. We go around La Source, and then we start on the endurance layout.
And with the track being so cold, 70 degrees Fahrenheit, that track temperature, it's going to be very, very difficult to be able to get yourself up to speed for the first lap or two. No chance to be able to really warm up your tires outside that pace lap. And with how many times we've seen so many troubles up the Kemmel Straight, you do not want to be that driver on the cold tires who bobbles coming up the hillside and causes the big one.
It's going to be very interesting here because it is 9:06 p.m. If I remember correctly, sunset was around 9:30. This is a 35-minute race, so we are going to be getting into the darkness in the final couple of minutes of this race. That's going to be very interesting as the track gets even cooler. But Justin, I'm going to put you on the spot here because in the first 4 races of the season, we've had 4 different winners. Jones, Urexoy, Arnold, and Dominguez. The top 3 here have already won a race. Can we keep that streak up going with somebody else? Who do you think is going to win?
I think there's a very good possibility. Sayat, I think, is someone you can throw into that conversation. Third in the standings entering the night. It's been very consistent amongst the front runners. An air driver, I think you can argue, could be up there. Peter Muller, I'm very curious about the 997. Seen that name a couple times. Fairly quick when we've seen him in different leagues in spot starts.
Getting the field all stacked up here. Remember, I don't believe we're going to go green here on the start-finish straight. We've got to go around turn 1. We've got to go around La Source. And then Ray Dominguez will be given the green flag. It's a strange sight at Spa. The crawl into turn 1. But if anything, that's going to make it a little bit safer, I think. No heroics into turn 1. The heroics can come at the end of the Kemmel Straight. But for the 3rd time this season, it's Ray Dominguez on pole, searching for his 2nd win after his debut win last week. For the first time tonight, we are back to racing at Spa. 38 cars, 38 drivers. Let's go from Spa-Francorchamps.
They're doing it! They're
Already trouble.
big.
Sully Sod goes around. Arrow Urexoy. It is the big one on the exit of Eau Rouge and Radion. Peter Mahler's involved. John Jones is involved. Justin is exactly correct. We're still piling them in. Greg Doucette, Carangis, Baron Hilton, Charles Sumner's going to make it through. But we have wrecked a solid half of the field here, Justin. And they're not done wrecking yet.
What in the world was Urexoy thinking? You do not go side by side on the opening lap up the hillside through a source, or towards that section, I should say, up the ruddy on El Rouge. You just have massive chaos, and guess what? We just lost at least 10 cars. Unbelievable.
It's a 2-car fight up front now. Ray Dominguez and Matt Arnold did survive the chaos by virtue of being ahead of it. And then behind, you already saw a peek at the used car lot on pit lane. And it's only going to get bigger over the next couple moments. Dale Peterson after his fantastic qualifying. Reagan Chandler after his fantastic qualifying. Taken out and on the back foot already here. I think Felix Feliz has gotten into a little bit of trouble separately. But look at the tree, Justin. Everybody's up multiple positions. Because by virtue of surviving lap 1 here, you've basically guaranteed yourself a top 20.
I'm going to repeat this one more time. As there goes Jones into the wall to add to the chaos, and Sayat is now crashing as I'm finishing that point. You do not want to be in the heart of the pack. This is why.
Steven Martinez going to be kind of dumbstruck right now to be on the podium. Brett Pancari, he's definitely going to consider himself lucky to have survived what happened there on lap 1, considering he was right behind it. But as we do cross the line to finish lap 1 here, remember this. The start line may have been on the endurance straight, but the finish line is here where the traditional finish line is. So just remember that once we get around to the finish. Ray Dominguez does lead lap 1, Matt Arnold in tow. They both saw chaos behind them, and now we do have to settle into a rhythm.
Some of the drivers to back into the pylon, like Dennis Fairclough, I believe, just went around, for example. A lot of drivers not in a good rhythm. And that's not great here. When you are driving, you do not drive well here when you're driving with the red mist because, as we've seen over the years, and we've seen in certain cases this month even here, it gets ugly fast.
Already see some of these damaged cars in the back of the pack. That's Ryan Chandler. I'm gonna have to figure out a nickname for one of these guys to determine which one's which. I think I'll go with 1N Ryan and 2N Ryan. This is 1N Ryan making his PRL debut tonight from Portland, Oregon. Got a little bit of damage on the rear end of that Ferrari, as you saw. But we do still have a pretty close fight up front here. Ray Dominguez, Matt Arnold, and Steven Martinez is not letting them go. He's actually closed that gap down by about 0.7 of a second. He had a fantastic lap 2, and we've got a three-way fight for the win.
It's going to take a little while, though, to be able to close that up. Martinez, we've seen fairly consistent this season for Belgian Motorsports, and it does have that speed to be able to try and work up. The problem's going to be now, what about everybody else? When you break the draft at Spa, it's so difficult to close it up. Here's the replay. You do not go inside here. Simple as that. You do not go inside on the opening lap. You have a straightaway to draft.
I think we call that a mess. Not much more you can say about that. Eventually, Urexoy gets going again, but it is a shopping list of drivers who were involved there. Urexoy, Saad, Mahler, Peterson, Chandler, Veloz, Karanjas, Hilton, and those are just the ones that are on pit lane right now with heavy damage. There's a whole host of others who got little bits of extra damage. But this is getting very interesting up front, Justin, because Martinez has brought this gap down another 0.5 of a second. I don't know if that's just a case of Morales saving fuel, or Dominguez saving fuel. Nobody in the pack back here going to be able to save fuel. As we take a look at another angle of it, this is what we saw originally, and that is a certified Belgian parking lot.
And that is about a majority of your top 10 in points. Well, what can you say? It's Spa. Anybody makes a mistake in that section. Anybody steps out. Anybody trying to make a pass there, it causes that. Guess what? It happened tonight.
It is quite the funnel there, but this could be very good, actually, for Matt Arnold and Ray Dominguez. You do get one drop week in the PRL, so your worst result in the first 9 weeks is dropped. So for a lot of those drivers like Urexoy, like Saad, like Dale Peterson, who are fighting for those high positions in the championship, they will be able to drop this week. But that means they can't afford any more mistakes, Justin. Urexoy cannot have another bad race if he wants to fight for this championship, because his drop week has been taken up right now by what's likely going to be a 30th place finish at best.
Yeah, this is a horrific race for everybody really up towards the front of the championship standings. You are outright screaming at this point. You do not want your drop to be, well, really any bad finish. You want it to at least be a consistent one, a decent one. But now that means you can't make any mistakes really the rest of the season, or else you might lose the championship. To put it politely, now if you're amongst that top 5, top 10 in the points, you're basically going to have to be there every single week. You can't miss a race, let alone miss a mark.
Matt Arnold already used up his drop week in week 1, had a bad finish. I don't believe crashed, but just didn't have a very solid race in week 1. So his drop week's gone. He's lucky he survived that. And he's going to hope he doesn't have any trouble for the rest of the season. There is still one Ryan Chandler still alive and damage-free. It is 2N Ryan Chandler. Qualified deeper in the field, but survived lap 1, made it through, and one more spot. Jared Keane ahead of him, and I believe this will be his first top 10 of the season. As we do take a look at Ryan Chandler on Zoom, he does have the fan on in the background. It's getting a little bit hotter, and he would be a big fan of a top 10 if he can get it.
Very punny indeed, but seriously, having that fan helps you keep cool to be able to make sure you think straight in this type of situation. But Chandler, up to 14 spots so far. That's pretty big because of everything that happened. He did not have a good qualifying run at all. Now can basically just work in the main pack that sort of formed up, position himself to get solid points, move forward. Just can't make any major mistakes. You can just see how much wheel movement has to go to just alongside the clatter into the curbs to make sure it isn't stepping out.
We're going to be workshopping for the next 27 minutes, Justin. We need a good nickname for 1N Ryan Chandler and 2N Ryan Chandler, because I'm not buying those two.
I'm not sure why he was raising his hand there. That was weird.
Having a little rest. Might as well. Or he was saying hi. That's entirely possible as well. I think Ryan might have the broadcast up on another screen. A lot of drivers do like to do that. He might know he's being watched. But either way, I got to think about some Ryan qualities. Virginia Ryan Chandler versus Oregon Ryan Chandler. That's too many syllables. We'll work on this. We'll go to the drawing board.
Well, remember a few years ago we had a broadcast here in Race Spot where every time the camera went on a certain car, it usually ended up wrecking. You do not want to be that person who says, "Hi, broadcast," and slams into the brick wall or a tire barrier.
At least he can keep both hands on the wheel. Colton Easterday, who races in the Truck Series and the Cup Series, used to have to take his hand off the wheel to press push to talk. I think he's since resolved that, but that's not ideal.
Yeah, to say the very least. But at the least, this lap is very smooth. No major step outs, no major slides on grip. Just trying to make sure the eyes don't get overly tired, trying to run in the line as the darkness starts to settle in. Expecting the headlights to go in full bloom just about now, in fact, on the front end at least.
You can see we're starting to get a little bit orange creamy in the sky. Sun doesn't actually set until 9:30, but because of the geography of the area, because of the tall trees in the mountains, the sun technically sets a little bit earlier than it officially does when it goes below the general horizon because of the terrain. So it could very well be getting dark at the end of the night. Ryan Chandler does have his headlights on. Everybody else doesn't. It's a little bit like when I drive home from work at 6:45. Some people have their brights on in the daytime. Other normal people don't. It's a matter of preference right now.
Yeah. That's the thing I find most interesting on that sequence. But for the most part, take what the field has given you, and it's given you a good chance at points. No one's really majorly battling. On the bright side, Michael Fowler is definitely beating expectations. Because one of the default decals on the Porsche is there's a little Pro logo that is sometimes on some of the cars in the default paint schemes. Funnily enough, Fowler, who's leading this pack, crossed it out on his paint scheme, and now all of a sudden is running in the top 10.
Understandable. You don't want to set expectations too high on your debut, but he is definitely setting expectations high. First and foremost, because of an absolutely beautiful livery. I'm a big fan of the highlighter green and purple and the stylized vulture on the side. Certainly making his mark here as he makes his debut. But that's going to be an interesting way to make your debut. You run your first PRL race, you got to survive a hurricane of cars. Right now, I'd say he's performing any expectations he probably had.
Yeah, you can say the same for Jerry Keane, who's been running well in this grouping in the Porsche. And this is a team, mind you, we've seen do very well in open wheel competition on Thursdays this season. But this season, and when it comes to this series, it's just Jerry Keane amongst the top 10 for the team perspective, at least so far this campaign.
Yeah, Keane's had a lot of speed, which is great. That's one thing to hang your hat on. You're qualifying on front rows. You're fighting very, very early on for podiums. But he's had some bad luck. He's had some wrecks. And this week, when you needed to avoid a wreck, he did end up qualifying a little bit deeper in the field. And because of that, doesn't have the track position. He's going to be running for likely 9th at best. He's going to be looking forward to some of the tracks in the second half of the season. Maybe Zolder, maybe Barcelona, that are a bit more similar to places where he's qualified well.
It's going to be something to watch as this year goes on for the closing stages. But right now, with already a few minutes down in this field so spread apart, I think it's curious to keep an eye on some of the times with this being one of the main packs. 29 5s for this group. here's the thing. The leaders are running 2:19.1s, I should say. And that's a pretty substantial difference when you're trying to find a way to close up such deficit of 10 seconds that normally in a race like this would probably be at least 3/4 of a distance less.
This is basically an identical pack here to what we see up front. And I do want to take us up front for a moment because when we ran the Spa-24, the iRacing Falcon Tire 24 Hours of Spa this weekend, we saw very similar things up front in the field. It was a lot of fuel saving. It was a lot of drafting. It was even a little bit of bump drafting at times. And I do wonder, with the speed Ray Dominguez showed in qualifying, is this a very deliberate backing up of the field? Is he saving fuel himself from the lead of this pack, bringing in the other four, and then once the pit stop rolls around in likely about 7 minutes time, he's going to dunk on everybody and have about a 2-second shorter pit stop. That's what I would imagine he's trying to do, but it is entirely possible that everybody else has picked up the pace as well.
And that's almost a balancing act. Noticing Dominguez is backing up the corners a little bit as the BMW, but you kind of have to if you want to try and save gas at this point as the lead car. It's much easier when you're in the draft where you can just go a bit of the flow of the draft, go from there. And I think Bakari especially, who had to close up 3 seconds net, give or take, after the incident, is the best significance of this, who decided, I'm going to just push and then go from there once we get to the pit stop sequence. Last time by, 2:19 flat, to be able to close the gap up fully to make this a 4-car group after being just a 2-car breakaway earlier on.
It's the tortoise versus the hare. Fast and fuel burn, slow and fuel save. I believe we do have Ray Dominguez on Zoom, by the way, and he's got a very interesting camera because we do see inside his room, but at the same time we don't see inside his room. He's repping his sponsors that are helping him run up front. I hope we get a chance to look at that because he might be sweating right now. There he is. Notice, Justin, that that's not a green screen. That is his actual room behind him, but at the same time it is a green screen because he's taken a photo of his room, added the sponsors, and then put that behind him.
That sounds like almost too much. And are we done with Spa yet? No, we are not.
Oh, Steven Martinez takes a peek into Lakecom. He is not content with riding in line here. I think that's basically a sign, Justin, that we're not seeing Steven Martinez save as much fuel as the front two. He wants track position, and he almost just took it for second.
Yeah, I don't blame him. There's already been little bits of contact. You notice that crushed back flare from Matt Arnold rather on the bumper. That just kind of significantly shows Martinez wants to go. The problem is, how do you go? And at a track like this where everyone's getting the tow, you're almost draft locked. And Martinez, unless he's significantly quicker, is not going to get a full run to be able to make the pass yet.
I'm starting to look a little bit deeper in the order at the likes of Buck Hamilton, Matt Dinsmore, as the fuel saving continues up front. It seems like Dominguez is slower than ever. Matt Arnold is actually going to take a peek to the inside, and Matt Arnold takes over the race lead from Ray Dominguez at Stavolo. Ray Dominguez very clearly saving absolute gallons of fuel here, or he's lost the 0.8 of a second advantage he had in qualifying. I have a feeling it's more of the former than the latter. But for the first time, he's given up track position to Matt Arnold.
Well, he did miss a fair bit of the quarter complex through Vanges to be able to slow so much down. He was towards the inside with the quick right-left. That put him really up for grabs. But this is really helpful. If anything, this puts him in a better position than being the leader for the gas mileage.
Yeah, if you've got control of the pace, you might as well back off a little bit more. But Steven Martinez still all over the back of Dominguez. Saw him go for another dive, or at least another attempt at a dive into the bus stop. Goes for another attempt at a dive into La Source. You can tell that Dominguez is lifting exceptionally early, but he's putting himself in danger right now because Martinez is showing the nose any chance he gets. If he closes the door a little bit too aggressively and doesn't expect Martinez to be stuffing it in there, we could see trouble here for second.
Oh, that's a great run, though, up the hillside. Here goes Martinez with the tow.
Here he comes to the outside of Dominguez, down the Kemmel straight, going to close all the way up to Matt Arnold. Does Dominguez lift off and slot back in third? No, he doesn't. He's going to keep fighting it, but Martinez is able to make it work around the outside, clears himself on the nose of Dominguez, and Steven Martinez up to second.
That was a near perfect run through the corner for Martinez to be able to set that up so well with the toe. But with the way Dominguez is going, he's almost broken his rhythm with that initial sequence. That one mistake was the start of it, and then you have it compounded to a variety of mistakes. At this point, Dominguez needs to be able to take a chance, or at least have a chance, to be able to breathe and say, okay, we need to calm down. Let's get back going into a rhythm before we lose these top two.
Look at the gap Matt Arnold's pulled. Almost a full second just from that one little bit of side-by-side through Lake Holm. Does Martinez have the pace to close that back down? Is Arnold lifting off at all to save a little bit more fuel? Questions still remain here, but on the exit of Fagna down into Stavolo, Martinez wringing the neck of this Ferrari, trying to get the first win for a Ferrari this season. The gap's only expanded up to Matt Arnold, though, and Ray Dominguez is coming back.
Yeah, that's more so a bit with the toe for now, since Martinez has lost the draft massively to Arnold. More bigger question is if Dominguez wants to try and go, he sends it up the chicane. It looks like he's saying, let's just close the gap, cooperate, rather than fight it out and lose Arnold.
We are past the halfway point in the race, or we're about halfway point in the race. Steven Martinez knows that. He comes in. Brett Pancari gonna follow him in as well. Dominguez and Arnold stay out. The majority of the field stays out as well, so it is an early stop for Martinez and Pancari, and this could put them in danger, Justin. With the stratification into the pack, with that trouble on lap 1, it's going to be very difficult to keep yourself out of traffic with an early pit stop.
Yeah, and for Martinez in particular, I think that was a solid run, but Pancari with that great entry is going to have a great position here to try and pounce, to be able to lead off that grouping. The Calargas as well, you could argue, had that great run. So it's almost, if anything, Martinez went a little too conservative if you have so many cars that close to you in the queue.
That is such a tough part of pit lane there, making that turn in the inside of La Source. It's an even tighter hairpin than the track itself, but everybody definitely going to be very well practiced at the hairpin from all of the running we did at Spa over the weekend, and I don't see any left side damage to anybody's car. So well done, everybody, getting it slowed down there. But here we go. These are some critical moments. Fuel, potentially tires, likely not tires. The fuel stop is going to be too short to change all 4 tires in time, but remember these numbers. Steven Martinez sits in the box, 10 seconds of fuel, 11 seconds of fuel, 12.5 is the final number. Remember that with the blend with Arnold and Dominguez once they come in.
Pancari 14 seconds, around 13 and a half more so. So a little bit extra, and that kind of just says it itself. They were near dead even on the entry. That 1 second gives them about 1 second difference on the racetrack. It's funny how math works.
It is funny how math works, and I still don't know how it works. I can never tell you, but either way, we're going to see the answer to the problem once Arnold and Dominguez come in. Likely this time around, if I had to guess. We'll see. Has Dominguez actually been doing as much fuel saving as we thought? Has Matt Arnold been sneaky good on the fuel? In a few moments, we will find out, but for now, Martinez and Pancari, actually quite luckily, or quite smartly, they've come out in a big bubble of clean air. 9 seconds up to Alan Dice, the next car up the road. It's masterfully calculated here.
Yeah, terrifically indeed, and still keeping a 3-second buffer or so to Buck Hamilton. More split calls. Arnold
Very
doesn't look to be... Arnold had to slam hard on the brakes, though, just to get to the speed limit.
Let's hope he didn't get a speeding penalty there. His fellow Matt also joining him on pit lane. Matt Dinsmore joins the fray. A very wide pit window here, Justin. Kind of a shockingly wide pit window. You see the likes of Ray Dominguez and Roy Brown able to go one more lap. But we saw drivers coming in as early as 3 laps ago. I would have expected it to be a little bit shorter with how long the track is, but that might just tell us how much fuel Dominguez and Brown have been able to save. They might have been able to extend the window into an extra lap.
I think that's more so just the drivers more so used to splitting the race in half in some circumstances. Here, or if you're at the front at least, maybe. But for the most part, everybody's just taking the 13-second stop so far. It's those who are now within these final 12, 13 minutes coming up on the clock who are going to be the ones to really keep an eye on for how much gas is put into the tank, because this might be a 1 second difference in the fuel load.
Remember, it was 12.9 seconds for Steven Martinez. Now we wait for Matt Arnold, for Matt Dinsmore. It's going to be 12 13, 14 seconds for Matt Arnold, 14 seconds for Matt Dinsmore. Those are long stops. And now we wait for the blend. Martinez coming up ratty on an Eau Rouge this time. It's looking good for Matt Arnold, but he does have to make the blend. Martinez is going to have a full head of steam here. Looks like Arnold is safe, though.
For how long, though, is the question. This is just enough distance for Arnold to not break the draft. Martinez just got there to be able to be the bridge between him and Pancari.
Trying to think about what this tells us now, though, because Arnold was a second slower in the box, took 1 extra second of fuel than Martinez did. I can only imagine how much more fuel Ray Dominguez was able to save, but there goes Matt Arnold around. Down at the bottom of the hill, Arnold spins all on his lonesome. Martinez avoids him, Pancari avoids him. He's trying to loop it around in traffic. Well done avoiding everybody, but Matt Arnold goes around at Bruxelles.
Too much speed, go into the corner. Simple as that. Didn't hit the curbs. Just looped it around. It whipsawed with how quick he was carrying it for the apex. Just that couple miles an hour difference compared to a normal run to the corner is enough with the different fuel loaded. Here's Dominguez.
Arnold is going to be absolutely kicking himself. This was going to be great for him to come back in the championship. Right now, as it looks, he's going to be fighting for 11th or 12th. But right you say, Justin, Ray Dominguez coming down pit lane this time. Even without that little check up there, I think he was going to be safe in the lead. But you saw Martinez having to go around the outside of Arnold at Bruxelles. That's going to lose him even more time. We just have to wait for the fuel number from Ray Dominguez now. If it's anything shorter than about 13 seconds, he's probably going to be safe.
Right now, looking very cautiously to that pit stall. You can see on the bottom side, the drivers are already making their way to the bus stop. This could be very close. If anything, Dominguez might not cycle to the lead. He might cycle to third unless he has a lightning fast stop in that pit stall.
Could we be about to see the ultimate upset? Ray Dominguez. It's excruciatingly long as you wait in the pits. 10.1 seconds. The fuel saving we thought he was doing was absolutely the case, and he has absolutely destroyed the competition on fuel saving. He's going to come out of the pits before Steven Martinez even crests the hill, I think. Ray Dominguez holds on to the lead officially now and boasts a 4-second gap for his efforts.
That's exactly what he needed to do if he wanted to be able to make this work. Go as long as he can, outsmart the rest of the field. The only driver to make it 10 laps on the stint before coming into the pit lane. A massive, massive strategy genius from Ray Dominguez.
What a job these guys have done. Eric Kulaga up into the top 5. Matt Dinsmore started 13th. He's up 7 spots. He's in the fight for the top 5 now. And it's a double Kulaga party at the last spot in the top 5 because it's Eric versus Michael. Michael Kulaga up a ton of spots as well. This is going to be very, very interesting. In the final 10 minutes, the fight for 5th is on.
Yeah, but Eric Kulaga has been extremely consistent on these laps today. Matt Dinsmore, though, he's been very solid on lighter fuel. So there's that little bit of a difference of the Ford with that horsepower down the straightaways versus the more versatile in the corners BMW.
There's the peak from Dinsmore. What a dive into Fania for Matt Dinsmore. Kulaga saw him coming eventually, couldn't defend very hard, and Matt Dinsmore book him up into the top 5. He's past the Ford, and he now looks forward to Buck Hamilton. 4th place is possible.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Dinsmore runs up there because he's been a top 5 driver on tempo all race. Here's the most difficult part, though. It's about 2 seconds to get up to Buck Hamilton. Needs to be near perfect. Just going to have to be able to make sure he breaks from the rest of the field here. And Buck Hamilton, though, is on his own. If anything, Buck Hamilton might be able to try and leech off of Brent Pancari to make sure these 3 don't get to his Ferrari.
This could get very interesting, but either way, I think Matt Dinsmore is going to be very happy right now. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this would be his best result in PRL history, as there's some big trouble a little bit further back. I think Greg Doucette looped it around at the exit of the bus stop. You saw it just in the background there. Some big trouble for Greg. Jared Keane, I think, avoided it. Greg spun it around right in front of Matt Arnold. We'll try and diagnose what happened there when we can. But Greg Doucette, a guy who's normally one of the cleanest drivers in the series, even he can't avoid the trouble today.
Yeah. On the bright side, at least for your Rexoid fans, he's made it back to the racetrack in 31st.
Woo! He's back. Unfortunately, he's how many laps down now? 3 laps down, so he could finish 28th at best. If he does have to have another drop week, when championships like this come down to points sometimes, 28th is better than 30th place. You want every point you can get.
I agree. And that's why I think the Kalagas are about to have a pretty solid scrap here, both from Vulture. But it's still a little bit of a family feud, you could say.
I think it is. I mean, bring Steve Harvey in here if we want to, but this is going to be interesting because Kulaga, well, I can't just say Kulaga anymore because it's both of them. Eric Kulaga, to be specific. He's tended to have the upper hand of the two brothers. Fought for the championship last year, against all odds, last season rather, in the Ford. Michael kind of in the background, but we know Michael's very quick. He's had some great runs in GT3. He's had some great runs in the open wheel side, and right now he is looking for a little bit of one-upmanship in the family. Can he finally beat his brother Eric?
That's a great question. What can you say? Making Ethan Bass proud. One of those drivers who really loves Fords.
Of course, you gotta love the Ford. You can never root against the Ford. I think that's basically a guarantee here. Most drivers have realized it's not really the ideal car. That is basically why we see Eric running it in this series. We see Ethan Bass running it in the Sprint Series coming up, and Jay Steffi as well, and that is it. But when you find a car you like, when you find a car you can have a lot of fun in, you don't want to give it up, and you have to respect Eric Kulaga sticking with it for all these seasons.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing is, in the past year or so, especially in some of the other series too, not just PRL, but in a couple others, SimCart comes to mind, for example, there are actual fully fledged teams that focus just on the Ford now and building setups for the Ford. So it has made a resurgence because of how many people love to drive the Ford.
Ford gang, I've got a t-shirt in the closet behind me, Justin, that Eric Kulaga sent me after he won a race in the Ford last season. He made a celebratory run of t-shirts, so I am, of course, a little bit biased, but who wouldn't be? Who wouldn't be biased by a free t-shirt?
Well, doesn't Arjuna have like 25 of them?
He does, and I believe that's an open call from Justin Prince. Send him some t-shirts. We all want them. We all need them. Send me some as well, and we'll gladly be biased towards you for a couple minutes.
Here's the major thing, though, because all these 3 drivers have stayed in a line and no one's been able to really make a pounce on each other. They've all reeled in Buck Hamilton. Hamilton has gone backwards this run. If anything, he is struggling mightily.
He is not looking too strong right now. You might call him a sitting buck, but Matt Dinsmore not satisfied with his best result in the PRL right now in P5. Looking for P4, maybe even the podium if there's some trouble up front. For now, though, setting his sights on Buck Hamilton into Stavelo here. It's a train again. It's a Buck Hamilton train. We'll see what Matt Dinsmore can do in the draft down the back straight.
Kulaga will have at least the triple toe to work on here. Doesn't seem to be having too much comfortability, though. A bad run up onto the straightaway, heading towards Blanchimont with a little bit of that curbing. Dinsmore had the best run out of the 3, if anything.
He did, but Buck Hamilton able to keep up the pace there on the back straight. You saw Kulaga getting a little bit of a correction through Blanchimont there. Normally a flat-out corner, but as the tires begin to wear, even in these cool temperatures, you're starting to see a little bit of swigglies and a little bit of wigglies. And Michael Kulaga still fighting with that car in the dying minutes of this race, trying to stay as close as he can to the back of this train. Into La Source a little bit later on the brakes than his brother in the Ford. He's going to stick with the train, but he is fighting that car.
Under 4 minutes to go, though. Not too much time to work with on the possible estimates. And already, Michael Kulaga continuing to struggle anywhere there's a curve. He seems to be almost lifting more cautiously, as if he's trying to avoid the incident points. Kulaga with a great chance.
Here we go, Michael Kulaga, Eric Kulaga. To the back of Matt Dinsmore. Eric trying to find a way past the BMW in his Ford. Couldn't find the inside, couldn't find the outside. He's He's got a slot in line right behind Dinsmore, right in front of his brother. Down the hill we go into Bruxelles. The Ford, very, very strong in the high-speed corners, I believe. Does struggle a little bit in the technical sections of this track, and of every track for that matter. But he is hunting that BMW. The lights are officially on now as it's getting darker and darker. You can see the shadows. 3 more minutes of night to go. And can Kulaga break back into the top 5?
I think at this rate, Kulaga needs to start chipping back, if anything. Looking like he almost wants to wind it up. The problem is, you can't get to the point where you're this far back where you can't even set up the chance to wind the draft up for Blanchamont to be able to get the pull. If you're this far back by that section, you're not making the pass by the time this race ends.
You should be aware as well that Ray Dominguez will take the white flag this time by, but the closest battle is here in this cluster. 4th, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. There's a little bit of a breakaway now with the Kulaga brothers losing the back of Dinsmore and Hamilton. But this fight is going to rage on. Could there be interfamilial drama here? Kulaga's got a great run, but remember how much of a trouble he had through Blanchamont last time around. No harm, no foul outside of the car that time. No wiggles. Going to get back in line of his brother as they take the white flag. He's got 1 more lap to get by.
Running out of time to be able to try and make anything work here. Can they do anything? Or better yet, whether Kulagas decide to fight with each other here. Michael's been struggling out of the corners.
You saw a flash of purple in the background. Matt Arnold has been forced down pit lane again. He's reached the incident limit, and he will have to serve a drive-through. In the PRL, at 13 incident points, you serve a drive-through. At 17 incident points, you are fully disqualified. So Matt Arnold, unfortunately, down pit lane, and he'll be outside of the top 20 after serving a very, very long drive-through, over a minute long, at the endurance layout of Spa here. But 1 more shot for Michael Kulaga into Les Combes, in the draft of his brother in the Ford. Can Kulaga, the Ferrari, be later on the brakes than Kulaga, the Ford? No, he cannot. He's going to have to search in the second sector of the track. Eric parks it in the middle of the road. Michael trying to find any way by. It's brothers versus brothers. It's 2 families net back here. It's Keane versus Chandler. Ryan Chandler, 1N Ryan Chandler, trying to make it around the outside, back to the inside with the switchback down the hill into Bruxelles.
These drivers have been fighting back and forth since the pit window started. Ryan Chandler forced a mistake though for the Porsche.
Jared Keane, a little bit too keen down the hill. The outside switches back to the inside here into No Name. Chandler barely able to hold on. Barely enough room given to the outside, but Ryan Chandler with 1N books himself back up into the top 10.
A nice pinch down, no contact. Likely gonna be the end unless there's a mistake there. But what a race after such a very crazy start. It's turned into a very normal sequential type of race.
It has. Once we kind of decrease things down to an official series level of cars, it has certainly calmed down. But up front, Ray Dominguez filing through the final couple of corners for the final time. He won for the first time last week, and he's got 2 seconds ahead of Steven Martinez to do it again. He was the master of fuel saving. He was a second ahead of the field in qualifying, and twice in a row, Ray Dominguez wins in the GT3 Fixed Series.
Well done indeed. Thumbs ups indeed. And yes, your spa day is now complete, Mr. Bing.
Beautiful stuff from Ray Dominguez, doing a little bit of a tire shake, a little bit of a dance for us. Across the line, Ryan Chandler, maybe his best PRL result. I think he's had a couple of top 10s potentially, but a race of survival today. He made it through when there was another Ryan Chandler on the scene to take him down. It was Ryan Chandler with 2 N's who really did a great job in the top 10 there. Seeing the rest of the field file through. 17th place, Jack Stevenson, I believe, survived the drama, survived the chaos, and he'll be coming home with a solid finish here behind John Jones. It's Glenn Vanko, actually, and is he out of fuel, Justin? Glenn Vanko was about to make it to the line there, and I think he's run out of fuel and come down pit lane for some reason. Not sure why that happened there. Matt Arnold had to come down pit lane for the incident limit, and he is going to be ruining this day, a day when he's stuck with Dominguez. He could have been on the podium, 1 spin of his own doing, and he finishes 21st today.
When you factor out the 2X. He probably is amongst those near borderline, but safe. But he's not going to be too happy with losing great points opportunities. With just about all your championship competitors having troubles today, you have to capitalize. Dominguez, Martinez, and Macari did.
Well, it's time for the book here. Let's see what happened. Ray Dominguez, we know how well he did. Victory for the second week in a row. His second win in the PRL does beat Steven Martinez by a little bit shorter of a margin than I think we expected. Martinez brought that down to 1.5 seconds in the end. Brett Punkari coming home with a fantastic podium in the number 35. And it's Buck Hamilton in fourth, and Matt Dinsmore, his best result in the PRL, I do believe, in P5. Eric Kulaga wins the family battle over his brother Michael. Then Roy Brown, Greg Doucette, and Ryan Chandler with 2 ends round out the top 10. There's not that many drivers who finished on the lead lap here. Jared Keane, P11, knocked out by Ryan Chandler. Finaro, Ryan, Sumner, Fowler on his debut. Mulholland, Sullivan, Jones, Morse, and Dice bring us down to the end of the top 20. Dice and Sullivan, fantastic job from the back of the grid for them to move up into the top 20. 21st place went to Waldo Walden, also started near the back, but made up quite a few spots in avoiding the lap 1 trouble. Matt Arnold finished right ahead of him, actually. He was 21st, Vanko 22nd. Walden did fall to 23rd in the final couple of laps. Dennis Faircloth made his debut. Jack Stevenson finishes 25th. And the last car on the lead lap, it's 1N Ryan Chandler, finishing in 26th. Carollo ran into some trouble. Felix Feliz, Reagan Chandler, and Aero Urexoy all absolutely destroyed on the opening lap with that trouble through Eau Rouge and Radion, as was Peter Mahler after a fantastic qualifying for him. Baron Hilton, Jason Bridges, Rodrigo Morales, Sully Saad, Dale Peterson, Nicholas Carangis, and Angelo Veloz make up the rest of the used car lot after that huge trouble on lap 1. A lot of them did not quite make the finish. Veloz, I don't believe, completed a full corner after getting taken out there, but a driver who completed all the corners ahead of the rest of the field. For the second week in a row, Ray Dominguez, we're talking to you again. This time, far more dominant, 8/10 over the field, incredible fuel saving in the race. How much do you love Spa right now?
Not a lot. I mean, I like it, love it in general, but I'm kind of sick of it for the rest of the year, okay?
Understandable. I mean, after 24 hours of us on the weekend, we're definitely ready to take a break from Spa. But did that help you over the weekend? Did you run the Spa 24?
I definitely did. Ended up 5th, and
Nice.
yeah, that was a lot. Yeah, I've done more than 1,000 laps in the last 2 months, so I was just, that's why I said last week, you can bet on me winning this one, because I've done the laps, you know. If it comes down to practice, I was going to win this one for sure.
Well, Ray, we've got the second half of the season coming up. This win's going to help you a lot. You saw championship leader Aero Urexoy taken out on lap 1. Is this the start of the championship fight coming back? How do you think the second half of the season's going to go?
Well, the second half might be a bit harder for me because, you know, Spa was really good. Virginia, I don't know where that came from, but I know the second part of the season it's gonna be tough because, you know, we're back to level playing field and he's got some speed, so it's gonna be tough.
Well, Ray, congrats on the second win in a row here, and we'll see you in 1 week's time in Belgium again.
Thanks a lot.
Ray Dominguez victorious today for the second time in the PRL. Justin, we've got the guy who came up just short for a quick chat as well. Steven Martinez is here with Justin Prince.
Steven, first things first, what did you need to do to be able to close up that gap in the closing stages? Big differences, it seemed, on the fuel at the end.
I mean, I think Ray was playing a little cat and mouse with us, rope-a-dope. So he was capable of running 217, so he just kind of kept the gap close to me. So I just had to run a clean race. As soon as Errol got taken out in Radion, I knew it was going to be a fight for us, and just try to get the points that he wouldn't have gotten for the team.
Let's quickly talk about that, because I believe you actually had the near perfect viewpoint of it, with it being right in front of you.
Yeah, I watched Errol basically move over to try to avoid contact, and he got turned into by, it looked like Sully. It was a white Porsche, and he just sideswiped him like he wasn't there. So I don't know if it's just a vision thing or he just couldn't control the car, but it just took out the field. I got lucky and only got a 1X going through that. So I just, after that, once we realized he was going to have a 6-second tow and or a 6-minute tow and then a 6-minute repair, we knew that the rest of the team had to pick it up. So
So, on the bright side, championship-wise, 3 of the 4 drivers ahead of you in the standings having been involved in the incident, now likely going to have to use their drop weeks as a result there. Focus now second half of the season, knowing that you do not have to use your drop from the spa day.
No, and this is actually one of my best tracks, and today's my birthday, so we were going to go out, and I was like, well, my family had mercy on me and let me race here today, so thanks to them. Love them. Love everybody. Thanks to my coaches, Dan Handover from Absolute Sim Racing. But yeah, it's going to be a fight all season, so can't take any one of these races for granted, so drop weeks or not.
Well, on the bright side, you finished second on your birthday. Congratulations. Happy birthday.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great one.
Steven Martinez, the birthday boy himself, 1 year older and 1 great result older as well. We got one more driver to talk to before we move into GT3 Sprint Series action, and that's because Brett Pancari on the podium in GT3 Fixed. A fantastic result for you, but the first question is, how did you make it through that drama on lap 1? How did you survive that?
I found a hole on the left side in Eau Rouge at the top, and they were crashing. I clipped the one portion that spun, but I got through it. I mean, I did not want to have what happened last week happen to me again. You know, qualify well, avoided calamity in turn 1 for VR, but then got taken out. So, and I needed luck there, and I can't believe it's the first GT3 podium, and I just don't know what to say really right now.
Understandable, but we got the second half of the season coming up. A lot of crazy tracks. We've got Le Mans, Zolder, Phillip Island, bunch of wild cards coming up. Do you think you can replicate this in any of those 5 weeks?
Well, Le Mans is one of my favorite tracks out there, but more so in prototypes because I don't do what everyone else does. Everyone runs low downforce, but I'd crank the downforce to the max and just let it rip. But Le Mans is one of my favorite tracks. I have not run Zolder much. I'll sit the rest of the schedule. Phillip Island don't run much either, so I mean, I'm having some momentum, you know, getting good qualifying runs and stuff like that, but it's going to come crashing down at some point. I just don't know when.
It'll come crashing down for all of us one day. But for now, Brett, congrats on the podium. Ride this high for the next week, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks. And quickly, I think Mopar, Dodge, Pennzoil, Dodge Viper, of course. Not really. Nick Baker is flashing Go Graphics for this paint. And like I said, a podium for a Viper, quote unquote.
A podium for a Viper indeed. We will believe that. Brett Pancari coming home on the podium here, Justin. First podium in GT3, and hopefully the first podium of many. The Viper BMW, it's a whole new manufacturer. I'm glad to see it. But I'm also glad to see that we are not done with GT3 racing action tonight, because one race in the books. How about a second one? It's the GT3 Sprint Series. Higher levels of drivers, longer races, 5-minute longer race, and a lot more action. We had enough action in race 1. Imagine what's going to happen in race 2 here. It's GT3 sprint time in the PRL. About 8 minutes left to go in qualifying. And you'll notice here, Justin, when we pull up the schedule, it looks exactly the same. Not much to talk about there because it's the same schedule as GT3 Fixed. For once, there's no separation. There's no one-off IMSA rounds. It is just the same calendar, the same level of drama. And I think everybody looking at the same wildcard tracks that we talked about in the GT3 Fix series. And it's going to be a select host of drivers who will be fighting for that championship. It's been a very, very close championship so far. We've seen multiple winners. And in the driver standings, the championship leader, Vincent Trepanier, is one of those. He's got one of the wins. Modolf has got one of the wins. Ovando has got one of the wins. And Dominic Olivier, down in 5th, has the 5th or the 4th of those 4 wins. Michael Diaz sits in the middle of all of them. He's put together a quietly consistent run. Simon Theriault, Vincent Trepanier's teammate, has also had some great runs as well. He's going to hope that he can put the stunt in his teammate and maybe beat him to advance motorsports glory. Martin Crisp, recently a non-SimCity racing driver anymore. He's racing independently, I believe. He is still P7 in the championship. And then last season's champion, Abner Acosta, hasn't quite had the run he had last season so far. He sits in 8th, ahead of Scott Skimbrough, and Juncos Hollinger Esports' Alessandro Torchio. And then in the team standings, things are going to get very close here, because notice, Advanced Motorsports 1st and 6th in the championship, Precision Racing Esports basically 3rd and 4th. All of that adds up to being basically dead even in points, Justin. 2 points separate the top 2.
I'm very curious on the blank in that, because the reason it's blank, Well, there was that team movement we just talked about with Crisp and a couple others, so that means no team is in third technically.
Yay.
We'll figure out what's going to go happen there, I think, after today. But still, a lot of those organizations that you expect to do well, Precision Racing Esports, Advanced Motorsports, Sim City Racing, all very quick. They've been for the past couple seasons, especially in this series. But there is a constant to most of these teams. They drive a Porsche.
Indeed. It's been basically the Porsche challenge in the GT3 Sprint Series. We've seen non-Porsches be able to win in the fixed series. Of course, the BMW won today and last week. But here, it has been all Porsche all the time for the first 4 weeks, except for Ethan Bass. He's all Ford all the time, and he's actually had some great runs in this car. I believe was in the top 10 in week 1. I'm going to have to check my statistics there to be exact. No, just outside of the top 10 in P11. That was still a great run for him. Has had some bad luck over the past couple weeks, but still repping the Ford and having a great time.
Yeah, just trying to do what you can in what is a very Porsche world. And how significant is it for tonight, and how the Porsche in the new version of it has come on in terms of speed, in terms of open setups? 34 of the 45 cars tonight are Porsches. Just 11 non-Porsche cars. You have to look all the way to Sean Dickinson before you find a Porsche in the top 20. He's the only one, in fact.
It's basically been GT3 and GT3.5 in a way, because we've seen the likes of Michael Terrafino, Ted Lowendick, Sean Dickinson, and a few others. Kwok Nin, Ethan Bass, they're all fighting for kind of top non-Porsche honors. Meanwhile, top Porsche honors currently going to Beckham Jasir in qualifying. Very fast last season. GT4 champion in the PRL. Won a couple of races in GT3 as well. He's looking for his first win of 2023 Season 3. Karl Modov crosses the line and jumps him off pole, though. Last week's winner and the winningest GT3 driver in PRL history. He puts it on pole again.
Looks to be very happy with the quick toe and the quick adjustment. Modov might just finish things up after that. Trepanier amongst those looking for a little bit of draft help, just a little bit behind. Well, never mind, his draft help just pulled off the racetrack, and everyone pulls off the racetrack. Noah Anderson nearly followed them off the racetrack in the upfront motorsports car.
It's a Joker lap. Might as well do it. You see one of the Seabow Racing Team cars off the road there. And Trepanier is going to get back in line here. Maybe giving a little bit of draft to the CRT entry behind him. That is entirely possible, not intentionally. See what happens as these guys try and regroup after just a little bit of an excursion.
Yeah, and remember, when it comes to this side of it, you have a lot more you can play around with fuel loads, with grip levels, with being able to find that speed for 2 quick laps. If not 1, maybe get a couple gathered up. After all, it's time for the battle of who wants to be first.
It's a little bit like F1 at Monza. Who wants to be in the lead? Who wants to be in second? Looks like Vincent Trepanier is going to lead his teammate, Simon Theriault, on the run here. So Simon's going to be lucky. He might be able to pick up a couple of those tenths to join his teammate up there, about 2 tenths off a pole. As they line it up, big exit off of the final part of the bus stop there for Trepanier, winding it up, and he's on the clock once again.
I mean, every time I see that, the main thought I have in my mind is not everybody can be at the back. Not everybody can be in the middle of the field. Not everybody can be the leader. Someone needs to be something. Trepanier having to take that lead spot. And that's the major thing. That's going to really assist his teammate in Simon Theriault to be able to pull up the trap. This is the main area, especially where this works. Pull him along up the Kemmel Straight before heading to the first major braking zone up through Lake Holm. When you are in clean space like this, it actually goes to the advantage to that lead car. And in turn, that's why Trepanier just moved off. He worked to that section as the lead car to help the 89 for the draft lap.
That was a very sportsmanlike sacrifice there from Vincent Trepanier to get himself out of the way. And now it is Simon Theriault's job to deliver. He's gotten some great help from his teammate there. Now can he match his teammate with that big lap time? Little bit of a wiggle coming down the hill. With the open setups here, it's going to be a little bit less planted than we saw in the GT3 Fixed Series. A little bit more on the ragged edge as drivers can take as much downforce out as they like. Driving straight into the sun, Theriault's giving it everything here.
Yeah, and with a lap like that, getting so much draft assist, you do not want to step out and make the major mistake in terms of slowdowns. He's 9/10 to get up to the pole, and he's borderline on how tight he is to getting it off track.
This guy knows the limits, I think, here over the curb. Out of Stavolo, then through the Corp Paul Ferreira, playing with the track limits at every single corner. Got a little bit of traffic coming up. I hope he didn't need to check up there as one of the CRT cars, I believe, swerves across the road to get out of the way. But Simon Theriault has had some great qualifyings earlier this season. He is a winner in the PRL, won his debut race in the GT4 series at Oran Park. He's searching for that first win in GT3, though, and his second win overall. Breaking into the bus stop for the second to last time for him. Can he improve on a 2:16.0? Here comes Theriault to the line with the help of his teammate. It's a huge lap from Theriault, but it's only good enough for 7th.
It gets him at least towards the front, though, right behind Ovando and right ahead of Jason Allen on the board. At that point, you take the track position the best as you can, just a couple of spots behind Trepanier for reference. Qualifying likely done for him. It's just now going to be a matter of drivers closing out the laps, and not too many look like they're in a position to be able to carry on.
Trepanier going to go for one more lap, though, after he sacrificed himself for the help of his teammate. He's not going to have any help up ahead, I don't think, unless Theriault is backed off to give him a draft down the Kemmel straight here. He hasn't, so Trepanier's got to do this all on his own. But pole is still possible, because I don't believe Karl Modolf really had a draft on his lap. I think that was just a totally vanilla lap of his own, a 2:15.1 on his own accord. Let's see if Trepanier can match that. One of the fastest drivers in GT3 history in the PRL. If you want to know how the statistics prove it, you got to look at the winningest drivers and the pole winningest drivers in GT3 and the PRL. Number 1, Karl Modolf with 25 poles. Number 2, Vincent Trepanier with 22 poles. These two are the titans of qualifying.
And Trepanier with that clean space. Wouldn't be surprised to see him in that conversation, at least to bump Jasir from second despite no drafting help. It's Arnaud Jeunesse I'm more so curious about, because he's getting a whiff of the draft, but not enough per se to impact him in the corners, but maybe a touch enough to push him from 16th in this train.
And you will notice back there, Arnaud Genet in a new livery this week. No longer a Unit Sim Sports driver, or no longer a SimCity Racing driver, rather. He is back home, where he used to be, at Unit Sim Sports, piloting their familiar purple and highlighter yellow colors. He's chasing down the Advanced Motorsports colors, though, that kind of funky jazz-colored car. Looks like one of those cups from a bowling alley in the early 2000s with the teal and the purple. It's a very, very beautiful car. We'll see if Vincent Trepanier can do a very beautiful lap here. He's got the most difficult part of the lap out of the way. Now it's one more braking zone to go.
See if Trepanier sticks it out. He will. Question will be, is it enough to pick up 0.2 of a second? That was close to nearly snapping around. And no change.
No change for Trepanier. He's going to have to start third here. Arnaud Genet, big jump for him. He got a little bit of draft from his fellow French-Canadian, Vincent Trepanier, puts him up into the top dozen. But that, I believe, is going to be it for qualifying, Justin. There's a few stragglers left on track, Ovando, Kimbrough, and Bass, but I don't think they're going to find any improvement. It's Karl Modolf up top. He had some bad luck to start the season. Boris Ovando does jump up to 4th, so he found some improvement. But what a lap for Karl Modolf, his 26th pole in the PRL.
Karl Modolf's been quick in just about every type of car in PRL. We've seen him on the road course side. Question is, though, do we go 2 for 2 in big ones coming up the hillside? Do we have a 25-car battle for the win? Well, anything in between, that's going to be a major question now for the final spa day.
Well, the one thing that isn't a question, Karl Modolf's qualifying abilities puts it on pole for the 26th time in GT3 and the 32nd time overall in the PRL. He's got Beckham Jasir to his outside, though. The fiercely forward driver is fiercely fast. and he is going to be a contender tonight. Vincent Trepanier, the championship leader, starts behind, and Boris Ovando, the inaugural winner of this season, starts alongside him. And it's Dominic Olivier, always very strong at Spa, alongside a driver who's always aggressive on the opening laps, Emmanuel Santos. Look for him coming into Les Combes on lap 1. Simon Theriault, with the help of his teammate, puts it P7 alongside Jason Allen, and Martin Crisp, no longer a SimCity racing driver, now piloting his own special livery, starts alongside Diego Morales. It's Fernando Jaquez on row number 6 alongside the lead driver steward of the PRL, Arnaud Genet. And then right behind him, unlucky 13th in the dying moments of the session, went to Juan Malagan. Ryan Puctel starts alongside him, and then it's Gonzalo Cortez and last season's champion Abner Acosta starting alongside each other. Sean Dickinson and the bad luck kid, Caven Norris, on row 8, 17th and 18th. And notice how we've only seen one non-Porsche. Sean Dickinson, top non-Porsche in qualifying in that Lamborghini. And it's Porsche, Bartley, Kimbrough, Porsche, Torquio, Nin. And finally, the monotony is broken up with Ethan Bass in the Ford, second of the non-Porsches, starting ahead of last season's GT3 fixed champion, Michael Terrafino. 25th went to Ted Lowendick of Nick and Ted's Excellent Adventure in that Ferrari. We saw the Ferrari do pretty well in the fixed race. He starts alongside the liveryless Kevin Simpson. Then it's downtown Gary Brown, 27th, alongside Joshua Spears. Ryan O'Connor in a Mercedes, one of the only Mercedes in the field, if not the only one, alongside the second of the upfront motorsports cars, Noah Anderson. Justin Ream, Nick Johnston, Justin Delano, Philippe Magnan, and Ted Lowendick's teammate, the Nick of Nick and Ted. It's Nick McLaughlin, a little bit deeper in the field, down in 35th. He'll start alongside Artie Mercedes, who ironically is in a Porsche. Alexandre Breton, Jay Steffi repping the Ford, Patrick Fogel in yet another Mercedes alongside Nikos Sanidakis. Miguel Angel Fonseca, many-time winner in the GT3 Sprint Series in the AM class, up in the Pro class this season once again, starts alongside Marc-Andre Desjardins. And Keaton Marcheski starts 43rd and shotgun on the field. We're about to go racing once more here, Justin. The sun is setting even more. It's going to be a 5-minute longer race and an even cooler track. How can we recreate what happened in the last race without recreating what happened in turn 1?
Have give and take heading up the hillside is key number 1. 2, remember, at this layout, the start zone and the green flag is coming out of La Source. 3, do not go side by side no matter what until you exit Radion and start heading to the Kimmel Straight. You hit all those boxes, you have a clean start.
You do have a very aggressive guy on the front row, though, in Beckham Jasir. Very aggressive guy in P6 and Emmanuel Santos. It's very similar to what we saw in the GT3 fixed race, Justin, that in the top 5, we've got 4 of the winners from the first 4 races and 1 guy who hasn't won yet. Who's going to be the winner in the next 40 minutes?
Good question. Wouldn't be surprised to see if it's Olivier. He was doing solidly in practice. Can they keep it clean more than the last one?
Arl Modov takes control of the field, and it's a much earlier start than we saw in the GT3 fixed race. We are green in GT3 Sprint. Carl Modov leads us, but we don't even make it to Eau Rouge and Radion this time. I think that was Simon Theriault turned around on the straight before we get to Radion, and we are wrecking even earlier. Diego Morales involved, Abner Acosta. Justin, I said we wouldn't wreck at Eau Rouge this time. We just did it before. There's a parking lot. You see Ted Lowendick trying to make it through. It's like I-95 back there. It's a 10-car race up front. It's a parking lot out back.
Well, that was a race for some people.
Oh, Santos gets turned by Simon Theriault. Theriault did survive in the opening lap. It was another white Porsche who got turned around. But the drama didn't end. Santos gets bullied off the road.
Again, this is basic stuff. Just take the green and don't hit each other. Apparently, the second step is very difficult to do here.
And amidst all the chaos, we do notice a couple of jumps in the order. Jason Allen, fantastic start up into P5 for him. Other than that, though, basically in the order they started. Carl Modov got a fantastic jump ahead of Beckham Jasir, forced him to slot in line. And now I have a feeling we're going to see a very similar thing. Now that we are in the higher level of the series, you start to see guys in the 6s, 7,000s of iRating. These are a lot of drivers who competed in the iRacing Spa-24 this weekend. But here is what happened right off the start. That was Diego Morales who originally got turned around. They were 3 wide, and then they were about 20 wide.
I don't know what to say other than wow. And I will say this. Apparently, there was a lot of discussion where everything can happen at Eau Rouge. Well, in the case of this race, we didn't even have to wait to that section to go 3 wide. Why?
They're 3 wide with one of the CRT cars, and I didn't see who the third car 3 wide there was. I don't know if it was one of the Unit Sim Sport cars or if it was Gonzalo Cortez potentially. We'll have to take a closer look there, but Cortez, one of those drivers, unfortunately down pit lane right now with heavy damage. Morales as well. Last season's champion, Abner Acosta, he's out of the race already, as is Ryan O'Connor. You'll see both of those last 2 drivers tomorrow night in Xfinity. And Justin Ream, the GT4 champion, the GT4 championship leader as well in the PRL. His GT3 efforts have not gone quite as well. Through no fault of his own, he had nowhere to go.
I mean, at the very least, on the bright side, it's still a train up at the front. Also on the bright side, this all allowed some of the teammates to at least coordinate with one each other. And that's actually something that can be very helpful here. The tough part is, if you don't find a way to close up the gap, you're in major trouble to be able to keep up with this choo-choo train that's starting to form in the draft lock.
And as I mentioned with getting into the higher levels of drivers, the GT3 Fix Series in the PRL, still a high-level competition, but it is drivers who are kind of getting their feet wet in the world of league racing, trying to form their skills. The likes of Michael Terrafino started down there. He won 2 championships in a row. That hardened him, and he was ready to start fighting with the pros after that. See him going around the outside at Bruxelles. I think that's Patrick Fogel to his outside. It's a switchback for Nick Johnston, actually. Great move by the double Mercedes party to get by Michael Terrafino.
Yeah, it's still going to be a little while for some of these drivers in the non-Porsches to cut their way through this pack. Give credit to Terrafino. He stayed very committed to his thanks to the fish paint scheme. And at this point, he's added to it, if I see right. In the past, it was just blue and yellow. Is that a cat in a cone with a ring on it now?
I believe that is the Space Cat. I believe that's an astronaut cat in an astronaut suit, because Michael Terrafino's username everywhere he goes is Space Cat. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we're gonna have to look at the hood again, but I think he is running a Space Cat on the Space Cat car.
Are we talking about an AI-generated cat or an actual Space Cat?
I think it's just a drawing, but I mean, I'm here for a real Space Cat. I'm sure that's existed at some point. There's a Space Monkey.
Let me repeat the question. Is it an AI drawn picture, or is it a actual drawn picture?
I think it's a human drawn picture. As side by side, Crisp and Johnston went through the bus stop. I think Martin Crisp may have been one of those drivers who was sandwiched in the 3 wide coming into Eau Rouge, by the way. So that's why he has some heavy damage at the front of that Porsche. His first race as an independent driver. He might have a beautiful livery on that Porsche now. Not quite so beautiful with the damage.
Yeah, and that's going to really, really slow you down here at Spa in the straightaway sections. That's exactly why Johnston's pulled away so quickly. Martin Crisp is nearly getting ran over by the rest of the pack. They're slowly trying to get around.
I think that was a slowdown there from Patrick Fogel, second in line. He checked up massively. Terrafino's going to get to his inside into Les Combes. You see Ted Lowendick in the Ferrari to the inside of Crisp as well. It is all kicking off in the middle of the field here. And there goes Fogel. Huge oversteer on the curb, loops it around.
Quite simply, I think that was just Fogel trying to keep it off of Terrafino and having to hook the wheel too hard to the left. Just spun him around.
Big trouble for Fogel. Does a good job of regrouping. Doesn't loop it again, but let's see what happened here on the outside of Terrafino. Becomes the inside and becomes the inside of the track.
Yep, exactly. Terrafino had a little bit of a squeeze to that middle line, trying to get that exit from the outer groove. And when you're not wanting to wreck somebody, obviously, you have to put a little bit more wheel into it side by side. That was just enough to kick the steering wheel for how quick the movement was.
So we're seeing a very familiar sight for all of you who joined us over the weekend at the iRacing Falcon Tire 24 Hours of Spa. It looked a lot like this for the majority of the first 20 hours or so, with the leaders, the drivers in second, the teams in second, just saving fuel, riding in line. Martin Crisp, by the way, all of the Martin Crisp fans in the chat, unfortunately, his bad race has gotten even worse. He's the damage, I think, unsavable. He's crashed, and Martin Crisp back on pit lane. So while these 10 up front have been very lucky survivors, everybody behind basically is going to be nursing damage all night long.
Yeah, and the DNF list, interestingly enough, is not as long as the first race of the night. Despite having double the cars pick up contact. But you also have to remember, championship pressures arise, and if you're amongst those in that clean position up front, you're smiling and saying, at least it wasn't for second this time.
At least it wasn't. Martin Crisp, he's out. Gary Brown also out of the race entirely. And Philippe Magnan also ran into some trouble. He is down pit lane as well with heavy, heavy damage. But we can calm down now. We can fall into a little bit of a holding pattern, and we can look forward to the pit stop. Pit stop's not officially required by the rules in the Precision Racing League GT3 Sprint Series, but they are required generally by the laws of physics. You cannot make it to the end of this race on one fuel tank with the fuel limit, so you will have to come down and take fuel at some point in the race. But when do you decide to do that? Do you do what Ray Dominguez did and extend it for as long as possible, take as short of a possible pit stop? Or do you think maybe it's undercut time with the fuel saving going? Maybe you could come in even earlier, find some clean track, push full bore, and maybe that's the way you jump forward in the train.
Well, that was how it worked in the fixed race. So at this point, you're just here. You're Trepanier. Go ahead, save that little extra bit. Make sure you don't lose the toe, though, to Modov. Don't let him pull away massively on this racetrack. For the most part, though, the further back you go in the train, the easier it gets. But the further back in the train, the more quicker the stop necessary will be to have to be able to take advantage. You do not want to be in a spot where you're so far back in the train that even with the undercut, it doesn't get you to the point.
See if we can join any more drivers into this train, into this chain, rather. Fernando Jaquez is certainly hoping he'd find a little bit of time to join the fray. Emmanuel Santos, remember, Justin, he basically got punted around on lap one by Theriault. He's done a fantastic job of recovering. If anything, he might get another shot at Theriault. He might get a chance to pass him in the near future again.
Yep, there is that chance, but it's also the question of, can you do anything? Theriault is a little bit far behind. If anything, he might lose the draft here if he doesn't find a way to gain at least a couple of tenths this lap. And that's just the difficulty with how intense the pack is. 2:16s for your head-of-the-pack drivers. That's very difficult to top lap after lap after lap at the tempo you need to run.
And don't forget, those 2:16s are being run with fuel saving. None of these guys in the top four are at 100% full power right now. They are lifting off early. They are saving fuel when they can. It is a titanic battle here. Bad luck for fans of Fernando Jaquez, though. I believe in his fight to catch the pack, I think he's looped it around at Lake Calm. We'll take a look back there at it when we can. But Jaquez falling down the order. A great run for CRT coming to an end.
I'm wondering more so what's going on, because he is stopped on the track. And that's the thing, just looked like normal corners. And then exit the corner, and then, okay, I've got to stop the car. Where'd he go?
That's got to spell equipment failure to me. Either his VR went out or he had some kind of issue. So that's terrible luck for Jaquez. That was one of his best runs he's ever had in the PRL. Running strongly in the top 10, but just like in real racing, you can't control those mechanical failures, and poor old Fernando's gonna have to wait another week to get back in the top 10.
Yeah, that was indeed a strange one. But overall, though, his first 10 minutes, eventually I have to wonder, does Karl Modov give up this lead? Does Trepanier look to pounce ahead and start leapfrogging once he hits his number? There's so many questions that go through the mind of these drivers, especially when you're trying to race in the midst of I think that's a void.
Something like that, but believe it or not, Justin, that person you see on camera there, that is not Joe Peak. That is Vincent Trepanier.
I didn't realize Vincent Trepanier looked that way.
It's such a beautiful similarity, and now that Joe Peak has officially joined RaceSpot, I really need him to get on one of these broadcasts so we can have him finally see the face of his doppelganger.
Yeah, indeed. He's got some good positioning to watch along. Hearing, by the way, the issue when it came to Quez, who stopped at the track, was indeed VR, Joey. That coming, I believe, from one of his teammates.
Indeed, Nane Tavares, by the way, one of the former drivers in this series. He was with us last season. Unfortunately, probably has some other things to do on Tuesday night. Couldn't quite make the commitment this season. But Nane, we hope to see you next season, maybe back in the field, expand the Seabow Racing Team roster once more. That'd be great to see. As we continue to ride on board with Vincent Trepanier. This guy's a machine. No mistakes whatsoever. Absolutely smooth. Fastest lap of the race from third in line. This is a guy who knows how to save fuel. This is a guy who knows how to do strategy. And he might be in third right now, but he is thinking right now, how do I get out of here? How do I jump my arch rival, Karl Modov?
And even the little mistakes, he's able to quickly recover quickly, notice. Slowed a little bit on that entry, going from one of the downshifts. That's cost him a couple of hundreds here.
Vondo, Justin, off the road. Sorry to interrupt, but he's, I think, made a single car mistake. He was fourth in line at this train. He's fallen down to seventh in the order. I think too much speed into the corner, and he's looped it around. He's in danger of losing another spot, I think, to Arnaud Genet. No, he's not. He's got back in line there. But Boris Ovando, huge damage. It's worse than just a spin.
That's the whole front bumper off the race car, as well as one of the headlights completely smashed out. And that new damage model, yes, you can break the headlights. Ovando gonna have to struggle forward here at this point with the damage, just a little bit too wide. Able to keep it going at least on momentum, but that's going to be a race killer.
Yeah, well done by his teammate Olivier to avoid him there, but Boris trying to keep pace with Vincent Trepanier, which is one of the most difficult things you can do in a GT3 car in the Precision Racing League. Overstepped it just a little bit, clipped that evil gravel, and there is no runoff at that specific spot at Spa. Surprisingly at speed right now, Justin. With that hard of a hit, I would expect him to be much, much slower, and he's definitely not on pace. I can't imagine he's still going to finish in the top 10, but look at him. He's still in the draft of Tirio.
I don't know how long that's going to be, though, with how badly that is aerodynamically. And again,
yeah, you can see how bad it is through the corners, though. I think he's okay in a straight line, but the second he has to actually slow down, he is SOL.
Yeah, and I find it intriguing just how the graphical layers are, too, with some of the... Can't tell if that's carbon or not. There's a little bit of the detail, if you look as close as possible, that you actually have a little slip where you have that bumper clip that's just about ripped off this car. That's how hard the contact was.
Yeah, on one hand, weight saving. On the other hand, large hit into the wall usually means some suspension issues. That car's not going to be driving too straight. It is not going to be especially comfortable for Boris Ovando, but he is still trying his best. As we wait for pit stops to come around here, Justin, I think we will take a moment to meet one of the most intriguing and unique things about the PRL GT3 Sprint Series, and that is we have drivers in the field who every single week put themselves on the line to wreck after we disturb them, and let's disturb one of them for the first time so far tonight. We're going to go all the way back to 22nd place, Ted Lowendick. First of all, we saw you in the Columbus bumper-to-bumper traffic coming into Eau Rouge there. How'd you make it through?
I came to a stop, and then others did not, and they paid the price for it, so...
Well, Ted, I imagine, driving home from work on the highways of Columbus, Ohio, you probably have experience in stop-start traffic. Did that help?
I think it did translate a little bit. It's usually at a much slower pace, but...
That is true. I mean, there's some crazy drivers in Ohio, Ted. I think, back end of the Kemmel Straight, I think we could see some similar speeds.
I saw something on Instagram the other day that said that Ohio had the worst drivers, and I got a little bit offended because I've been here my whole life.
But we do
I
see
think-
in the background, Ted, more importantly, I cannot let this go. First of all, Canadian maple syrup. So well done repping your
Well,
teammate there.
It's
Oh.
not Canadian.
Oh, no. Don't tell Nick.
So, yeah, no, he knows.
Don't tell Nick, but the waffle, of course, it's a tradition at this point, and it's only 4 quarters of a waffle now. It's not 8 quarters of a waffle. And good old Belgian Ted Lowendick can't beat it.
Yeah, can't imagine. But it is some of Ohio's finest maple syrup, so we're getting there.
course.
But
I didn't know you guys had maple trees.
yeah, we've got them all over the place. So.
You've got to be careful. It's not like Buckeye syrup accidentally, and then you're poisoned at the end of the race.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that our state tree is a poisonous nut. It is kind of funny. So,
Justin, I'm just staring at the waffle. I haven't seen Ted's face in the last minute. I've just been staring directly at that waffle. This is like torture. I think that's a crime against humanity. He's torturing us. Looking at food.
it's torture to me. I can smell it the
Yeah, you
whole
can
race. And I
smell
can't
it.
even eat it.
Do waffles make you faster, Justin?
Do waffles make me faster? Being able to eat makes you faster.
That is true. Well, actually, ironically, when you don't eat, it's also a fast.
I understand what you're saying, but when you're hungry, you don't race as well.
Ted knows that's true. Ted, will let you get back to, I mean, we don't really have anything to let you get back to. It looks like you're in a bubble with nobody around you, but you did survive lap 1, and that's all we can ask for.
That was an accomplishment. We made it. What was funny is I told Nick, I was like, welcome to Spa, where everybody goes to relax, but we're here for the carnage. And then they wrecked. So
They did wreck. Ted Lowendick, we'll let him get back to his job. We'll send him back down to his cubby hole with his teammate Nick McLaughlin. But what a couple of guys there, giving us their time to disturb them every single race. And Justin, every single time we do that, I'm hoping that we're finally going to take them by surprise, and it'll finally be the race where they wreck because they're so shocked. And it's never happened.
Yeah, and you win championships by avoiding massive incidents like that one, or at least get yourself some great points. I think Lowendick, for Nick and Ted's excellent adventure, are able to get some good points now as a result there. Not as many as I think they were hoping for, but it's still a lot of ground gained on their fellow rivals.
Yeah, if you saw them last season, Justin, they were racing as the Joey Tebbin fan club, and that was maybe the worst season I've ever seen by any team ever. It went horrifically wrong.
Yes, indeed, and I believe they also consider themselves RaceSpot's favorite drivers, if you look at the name of the room.
Yeah, they took my name off the team, and they finally found some success in this series, and I don't think that's a coincidence. They're racing alongside me now in the PRL NASCAR Xfinity Series. You'll see all three of us teaming up tomorrow night for that action, but we still got 20 more minutes of action here tonight, reaching the halfway point. Top three still separated by a second. Trepannier's lost a little bit of touch. Don't know if that's because of fuel saving or because of pace, but Beckham Jasir still giving Carl Modoff the business.
I mean, it still keeps him on his toes, but still, the fall-off difference for the top two, 1/10 of a second. 1/10 of a second of fall-off in 20 minutes is absurd. But it's also standard for this car. That also is big, though, for how much some of the drivers have fallen off behind, like Jason Allen, Simon Tevio, Dominic Olivier, in particular, to lose the touch to the main pack.
And the lights are officially on here. You can see the sun already has gone below the trees. Sunset hasn't struck just yet, but it is getting darker and darker. Like Journey said, the lights, they're going down in the city, or at least in the middle of the forest. Through last source here. Modoff in control right now over Beckham Jasir, over Vincent Trepanier. It's intense when you're in a holding pattern like this, because you know that once that pit stop comes around, you've got to be 100%. You've got to be on full attack. You're not resting now at all.
Exactly. And that's why we even seen with some of the drivers that are blinking so hard to make sure they didn't have their eyes lose focus. That is a thing that can happen. But it's worth noting Trepanier's fuel saving the hardest out of all of them. Gaining down the Camel Straight, midway through the straightaway, lifting to get to half throttle, if not towards the clutch. Back into the gas to make sure he doesn't lose the delta. Jasir not really doing the same thing. If anything, he's trying to just maintain the distance rather than close the distance on the draft to Modoff. So a lot of different ways drivers are trying to save the gas right now.
How long can they take it? The last pit stop in the GT3 fixed race was about 14 minutes to go. That's how far Ray Dominguez was able to make it. We've already passed that limit, basically. Remember, that was a 35-minute race. That was a 21, 22-minute stint. We're 22 minutes into this race now, so you do have to start thinking, the fuel is running out. Is it about time for some of these drivers to finally bring it down pit lane? Nobody up front has done it. We've seen a few in the back come down. Fonseca's come down, Steffi, Simpson, and Scherf. But all of these guys may still have a few more laps to go. There may still be a few more drops of fuel in the tanks.
Still expected around the 12-minute or so mark to go, but the major difference with the amount of fuel in the tank, going to be an extra probably 3-4 seconds we've seen on the average compared to the fixed side of the card. But that's still a major difference window in terms of how long you have to be in the box, how long you have to be patient, in terms of how much gas differential you have to save around this racetrack. All those variables going to be on the minds of these drivers these next few minutes to make sure they don't make any major errors in these next 3 laps, maybe 4 to 5, to see if they can try and pull off what was done to win the fixed race.
Nick Johnston still in the battle here for top non-Porsche, trying to fight with Michael Terrafino up ahead there. Sean Dickinson, currently the top non-Porsche in 16th. He's very much in control of that fight. Then it's Ethan Bass after him, and this is the fight, but Terrafino comes down pit lane. He's the first taker from the top 20 who says, you know what, it's finally time for fuel. There's a few more ahead of him. Sean Dickinson does as well. I think Ethan Bass may have come into the pits as well. It is finally getting into crunch time. How much longer can these guys stretch it? Probably not much. And how well have they done at saving fuel here? Has Beckham Jasir been able to pull something off here from second? He's kind of the underdog in this battle compared to the 2 titans that sandwich him. It's a waiting game. It's a fuel game. It's all sorts of games.
It's all sorts of magical games, to say the very least. But that's the wizardry of it all. If you don't pick the right spell, or in this case, pick the right way to save or the right way to run the track, you're on the back foot and you're in towards the back of the grouping right now. It's worth noting that some of the drivers mid-pack are already coming down, so we're right on the cusp of that window. If you add the difference on the fuel tank, we're up that +3. Might start seeing these leaders come in this, if not next lap.
Karl Modolf really playing with those track limits coming out of Stavolo. You can't really afford to go that wide out there. I think as long as you have one tire on the curb, you are within the limits of the track limits here. But he was very far out there. He almost had a wheel in the gravel. He is playing with the limits here, and that is a driver who's pushing all out here. He saved a ton of fuel, and he's trying to make sure he can come out of the pits and have that all be for a good cause. Through the bus stop, Modolf stays out, Jasir stays out, Trepanier stays out. One more lap each for all of these guys, but look behind them. Does Allen stay out? Yes, he does. Thierry's still going. Olivier's still going. These guys are extending it for as long as humanly possible.
Well, that's again not the surprise. That is the typical strat that can win you the race here. Dines, by the way, is into the pit lane today, should say. Inside the top 10, so top 10 drivers are thinking about it. Question is, how long does it go from thinking to doing?
Scott Kimbrough in as well. He actually won a race last season. We went to Detroit's Belle Isle, and Scott Kimbrough absolutely put a clinic on the field. He's hoping that we go to another street circuit here soon, I think. We're not going to do that this season, but we'll see if we can in the future. Arnaud Genet, also a winner this season, not in this series, but in the Radical Fix series in the PRL. He's done a great job in that series. He's got 2 wins, both of them searching for more glory in this series. But look at Trepanier getting a little bit more aggressive, coming down into Bruxelles there, sending it in. 8 tenths now separate the top 10. It was a full second at the time, but Trepanier might be thinking right now, it's go time. It's in-lap time. I need to be as close as possible to these guys.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's the last of the 3, rather, to pit in with how much he's been lifting down some of these straights when he's been closing up. it's going to be interesting how much he actually has saved in terms of the clicks, because again, when you load up your box, you have the amount of fuel you can put in. That one difference on the click might be that 1 second that Winter loses you the race between those little tenths of a gallon or those little tenths of a liter.
Trepanier going very, very wide on the entry to the last corner before Blanchimont, running somewhat unique line, then drifting it just a little bit. Those tires are screaming, despite the fact that we are at basically the coldest time of the day. The sun's down, very cold track temps, but Modov comes in, Trepanier comes in, Jasir's going one more lap.
Now that's a surprise. Wasn't sure if Jasir would have the best mileage of the three, but Trepanier was saving a lot there. I'm surprised he followed Modov.
See if he can jump him on the lane here. Everybody getting down to pit speed. No theatrics, no playing with the pit speed limit here. All these guys just running on the limiter here through this tight hairpin. It's so difficult to see the exit of the corner there. It's so difficult to not hit that wall, but these guys are the best in the business. And we'll see. How well has Karl Modov done saving fuel from the lead? How well has Trepanier done saving from third? These two combined almost 50 wins in GT3 competition in the PRL, and now it becomes a race of the pit stops.
You say everyone's following the 37 miles per hour. Technically, they're at 37.5. How do you know that? Sometimes drivers find a way to cradle the 37 and 38 that will flicker in the sim, and a lot of these drivers are doing that. Welcome to open setup racing.
See Boris Ovando in the damaged car there, but Vincent Trepanier beats Karl Modov out of the pits. They're almost side by side, but Trepanier, a fantastic stop, more fuel saved than Modov. He's got the track position for the moment.
Has to be very careful though. Modov has the draft to go for the slingshot back if he wants to.
Here comes Karl Modov to the outside, a second slower in the box than Trepanier was, but he's going to try and get the spot back on the track. Under braking into Lecombe, Trepanier on the inside. Modov's going to be on the outside, that becomes the inside, and Modov takes it back.
Now we see the true power of Trepanier. Was he fully saving, holding back? Or was even better, Modov holding back and now looking to pull off and away? And that's almost the wondering of, was staying with Jasir the call? The more they fight, the more this helps Jasir's case.
Yeah, you know who is going to be loving this. It's the driver of the number 12. It's 100 Becks himself, Beckham Jasir. Even just running side by side through Lecombe one time, that is going to lose you time. That might lose you a full second of time. But Beckham Jasir does bring it down pit lane this time. He's just entered the lane. And now we wait. How has he been able to save fuel? We know he's an aggressive driver. Is he able to aggressively fuel save? We gotta wait about 50 seconds for the blend.
It is an organization that likes to be fiercely ahead of the curve and forwardly thinking. But right now, also doing the similar strat as some of the others. Of note, Nathan Bartley and Mutzel starting to hit the incident limit. But for Jasir, right now the number to consider, about 10.5 seconds. The pit delta for your main drivers. Is this going to be a major difference to be able to get that touch bit ahead?
Here we go. Bad news for the second place driver who just came into the pits there. I think Juan Malagon has run into some big trouble because he's disappeared off the face of the earth. Ted Lowendick as well going one extra lap. But here we go. Beckham Jasir. Remember these numbers, 11.11 or 11.1 seconds in the box for Modov, 10.3 for Trepanier. How quick can the stop be for Beckham Jasir? 8 seconds, 9 seconds, 9.8 seconds. It's a fantastic stop for Beckham Jasir. And now we have to ask, like Tom Dixon did, will it blend? That is the question. Has Beckham Jasir just jumped the two titans of PRL GT3? He has, but they've got the run down the Kemmel Straight.
And that's going to be huge because Jasir, not as big of a gap seen in the fixed race, and Modov knowing he needs Trepanier to work with them, and they are working together. That's enough to just get them a whiff of the draft. Now it's up to them. How do they race this for the next 9 minutes? That's about 4 or 5 laps to battle.
It is an all-out fight now for 8 minutes and 50 seconds. 5 laps, 4 laps at the line. What do any of these drivers have? Trepanier hunting the back of Karl Modov, trying to basically run this like an oval, running to the outside, running to the inside, finding any way to disturb the momentum of Modov. He is struggling to do so, though. Can Karl Modov bring down that 1 second gap? He had a fantastic run in qualifying, put it on pole, but if you remember, that pole was only by about 0.02 of a second. Jasir and Modov are almost equal on pace. Modov needs to find another level here.
And it has to be lightning quick with how it's going right now, because if you don't, well, congratulations to Jasir, but there's still plenty of time to consider. That's the major part of all this equation. They're right now in that trap. They have the upper hand, if anything, if they hit their marks in the middle sector. If they don't, it's not going to be easy. You need enough time to truly make this work.
Who can be latest on the brakes into the bus stop? Jasir very late in the brakes, but Modov even later. A short stop for Jasir is great for track position, but has he sacrificed a little bit of fuel? Does he have to still save a little bit of fuel to make it to the end of this race? And can Modov take advantage of that potentially in these braking zones? Into La Source again, just a little bit earlier on the brakes is Jasir. You see the gap coming down for Modov. It's not bringing it down much, but Jasir is lifting off earlier.
Yeah, right now that's what you kind of have to do with the fuel mileage a bit. You don't have anyone to draft off of. It puts you a lot bit more closer on the mileage. And that cushion he built up from that call, already gone. They've got the whiff of the draft. It's time to snake.
Modov within a second, but not as close as he would want down the Kemmel Straight. Still about 9/10 back. He's in the region of the draft, but there's almost a bubble with the diminished draft in these GT3 cars since a recent update. You have to be so close, and you have to have such a run to make a move work. Modov throws it off the road in the exit of Lake Calm. That's not going to help whatsoever, and that's going to get him another incident point.
And that's not helpful whatsoever for his shot to try and win this race either, because that lost him at least about 1/10 of a second. So just about all the work they did in the third sector up through Blanchimont, through the final corners, into the later braking sections, has just been thrown out the window.
If we look back to Beckham Jasir's season so far, he's currently 11th in the standings. He's actually been here for every single race so far this season, but his race-winning pace has not been shown or not been delivered on every race, unfortunately. Last race, a crash, 12 points. That's it. You get 57 points at most if you win here. So he needs to use that as his drop week and hope that this week and a win can be his ticket back into the championship fight, because we know he has the speed. We know he can be fiercely forward with that team, but he has not had the consistency over the last 2 seasons. Maybe this could be the start of that, beating these 2 Titans.
Well, he's beat these Titans before on the racetrack, Jasir, after all. Just a couple seasons ago, you think about some of the battles, say Barber. Really seen a lot of back and forth fights with Jasir, going door to door with some competitors in some of the various classes and series. But right now, can't afford to make mistakes now. Can't afford to run out of gas, especially. After all, he had the shortest stop out of any driver in either of the races tonight. Even with the bigger fuel tank. 5 minutes to work with.
I don't think he's saving fuel anymore. I think he may have needed to save like a minuscule amount, maybe, into the bus stop, into La Source, because since then, it has been a 1 second gap, just stagnated, basically. Back to Karl Modov. He's still within the precipices of the draft. He can sniff it, but he can't use it. Jasir's defending as if that's really going to matter. Modov still about a full second behind. So we take a look a little bit deeper in the field. Ethan Bass having a fantastic run in that Ford. He's in the fight for top non-Porsche here. That's Sean Dickinson right ahead of him. Ethan Bass could take the honors in that Ford if he can get past.
Yeah, that'd be very big for the Ford. There is a 2-lap difference on cycle, a bit on the fuel mileage with some of the various transactions for SimCity. Tonight would be a chance to be able to at least build some momentum going forward. Looking at the other battle, though, Scott Kimbrough looking for a move in the top 10.
Around the outside of Kwok Nin, becomes the inside, but Kwok Nin not going to give it up. He's going to be forced to give it up potentially by Kimbrough. Around the outside, but he's a little bit wide off into the gravel. Can Kwok Nin stay there into Bruxelles? He can. He's forced to get back in line. Kwok Nin fighting for a top 10, almost gets into the back of Scott Kimbrough. Well avoided by everybody there. A great run again for Kwok Nin, who always stays out of trouble, but he would love a top 10 in this Pro Series.
I think it's very doable with how he's been running the race. When you're looking at some of the deltas, 2:17.6 last time by. That puts him up as fast as Terrio's pace, who's in 6th. Kwok Nin, though, I'm not sure what that picture says, but
they finished 3rd at the 24 Hours of Spa this weekend in their split, Vaporworks.
Well, congratulations to them as he looks to turn into Vapor into the backdrop.
Something like that. I mean, it's kind of like Ray Dominguez there. He's losing his hands at times. But Kwok in the Rexy car for Vaporworks, going to be hunting down that top 10. Up front, all of you ticker watchers have seen as well, Modov has closed that gap down to Beckham Jasir. Half a second, 5/10 separate them now. Modov has turned up the wick, or Jasir has turned down the wick. Things are heating up front.
Still keep it out of the mid-pack for now, but indeed, it's time to go. Whether you're in the 20s or the lead. About 2 laps to do things. And if you're in this grouping, well, you see the bold moves being taken already.
That was Ted Lowendick almost on the grass trying to get around Artie Mercedes in the Porsche. You see the purple lights of that Ferrari lighting up. Ted Lowendick probably lighting up behind the wheel. As things only get closer up front, they are getting aggressive here in the middle of the pack. Ted Lowendick gonna hope to use the Kemmel Straight to get out of this train, or at least move forward 1 car.
Yeah, but you don't want to throw it all away right here, right now. You don't want to end up getting too anxious and go and turn your amazing adventure into amazing disappointment at Spa.
That was the tale of their last season. It was amazing disappointment more often than not, but here we go. Down the Kemmel Straight, couldn't get the exit. The Ferrari, maybe not as grunty in a straight line as he would like. And Artie Mercedes is going to hang on. The actual Mercedes in front of him of Nick Johnston going to hang on as well. It's crazy stuff. He gets to the inside, actually, of Josh Spears through the final part of Les Combes. Nothing doing there. They're all over the road. Swerve one way, swerve the other. Nowhere Ted Lowendick can go because there's a wall of cars in front of him.
There's still 1 lap to play things forward here. Just no place for anyone to make a move. No close spot yet for a passing zone unless you are extremely daring. Not afraid to bump competitors off the racetrack.
2/10 separate the leaders now. They're going to take the white flag this time as the argument continues here in the middle of the field. Mercedes can't find a way by. Lowendick can't find a way by. They're going to be in single file for the rest of the final sector here. But Karl Modov is within draft range of Beckham Jasir now, Justin. As they take the white flag, he's going to have a huge chance coming into Les Combes for the final time.
Yeah, huge fights all throughout. Major question mark. Can we see things play out clean? After such a wild start to the day for both of these races, Modov looking to see if he can have a special move in what could be a crazy battle for the win.
The clock ticks to 0. This is the final lap. Modov not able to take advantage of the longest straight in the track, but he is all over the back of Beckham Jasir, trying to hunt for any way by through Les Combes. Peeks to the inside, peeks to the outside, needs to get that little bit closer to make a legitimate attempt, but he is all over the back of Beckham Jasir.
Still at least a couple more passing opportunities to go. Vanges and the run up to the final bus stop, the best chances you can have. Is there going to be enough time for Modov, though, to try and get win 33?
Through Pouon for the final time. You saw Jasir and Modov, I think, both using up one of their incident points. They know they're good, and they can extend the track a little bit on exit there, using every bit of paved asphalt of this track into Fania for the final time. Modov hugging the curbs. Jasir hugging him even harder. The gap staying stagnant at about 0.3 of a second, but Modov needs a fantastic exit here if he wants one final shot into the bus stop. through the core Paul Ferreira for the final time. It's a good exit for Jasir. It's a good exit for Modov, but is a 4.5 of a second gap too much for Modov? It might just be. He's going to use every last bit of the draft here. Into the penultimate corners, through Blanchimont for the final time. Is Modov close enough to go for one more dive? What can he do to Beckham Jasir into the final set of corners here? Late on the brakes as possible. Not going to be late enough. Jasir misses the corner a little bit, actually, but he's able to switch it back in time. The winningest driver in PRL GT3 is going to finish second. It's the new kid in town. It's Beckham Jasir wins at Spa.
Well done on the strategy, well done on the pace. And they were able to do it just in the nick of time when it comes to incident points, because several other top 10 drivers, Olivier, Terrio, and several others, having to come down right now and serve drive-thrus.
I don't think they're going to be able to serve those drive-thrus because they're going to cross the line before they're through pit lane. Those two are going to be going to the tail end of the lead lap. Terrible luck for them. Running out of those incident points in the final lap, that's basically an end-of-lap penalty.
We'll see how this gets shuffled by the sim, but yeah. Some intense fights. That battle for 17th is on Lon's side of the final corner. There's Mercedes coming out of that complex, just having to launch it to be able to hold off Ted Lowendick.
Lowendick not able to make that move. Looks like it's going to be P15 at the line. No, Dickinson P15, Terrafino 16th, Ted Lowendick comes home 18th, will be 16th most likely, with Olivier and Thierry, I think, running into the ire of the incident limit. Here comes the Unit Sim Sports duo, Caven Norris crossing the line in the number 774. Jay Steffi's out of fuel, and that's Marc-Andre Desjardins and Alexandre Breton, two more Unit Sim Sports drivers making it to the finish, which is an accomplishment in and of itself. What a race at Spa, Justin, between the absolute titans of this series. We mentioned this track gets used a lot, and even then, the cream rises to the top. Nick McLaughlin brings it to the finish as well in that Ferrari. Well done by him. After a nice vacation, he's back on track. But Beckham Jasir wins at Spa, his third win in this series. He is back in the championship fight, potentially. Ahead of Karl Modov, tried his best, couldn't quite get close enough. And Vincent Trepanier. You don't often talk about Vincent Trepanier as a guy who doesn't have the pace for the win, but those other two were in an absolute another league tonight. Jason Allen, his best result of the season, fantastic fourth for him. And Borso Vondo, even with a wrecked car, comes home in P5. Emmanuel Santos, great race from him in P6. And Olivier and Thierry did get 7th and 8th on the run there, so I think that is official. They will get to keep those finishing spots ahead of Genet and Scott Kimbrough, last driver in the top 10. Kwok Nin coming home in 11th place ahead of Ryan Pucktel. Great run for Kwok Nin in 11th in this pro field. Torquio finishes in 13th, and Ethan Bass wins the non-official non-Porsche class. He's the top non-Porsche in the Ford, ahead of Sean Dickinson, ahead of Michael Terrafino. Artie Mercedes and Ted Lowendick had a fantastic battle for 17th. Malagon and Justin Delano rounded out the top 20. Down in 21st, it was Nick Johnston in the Mercedes. He had a good run in that car. Then Norris, Fonseca, McLaughlin, Simpson, Desjardins, Breton, Steffi, Bartley, and Josh Spears bring us down to the end of the top 30. A lot more drivers on the lead lap in this series than there were in the previous race. Nikos Sanidakis, the last of them. Matt Scherf, the fan club, not going to be too happy about him finishing one lap down. And then we start to get into the used car, a lot of cars with heavy damage. Fogel made it to the end. Anderson, I believe, made it to the end, as did Smoger. Keaton Marcheski ran into trouble early on. Fernando Jaquez had a VR failure. Martin Crisp, Philippe Magnan, Gary Brown, Diego Morales, Gonzalo Cortez, Abner Acosta, Ryan O'Connor, and Justin Ream all ran into assorted amounts of trouble. Most of them ran into the big trouble on lap 1. But all that trouble happened behind the three guys who fought for this race win. And the guy who ended up taking it at the end of it all was who else but Beckham Jasir, and he's with us here in the booth. What an absolutely incredible battle at the end there, Beckham, but against Karl Modov, the winningest guy in this series, how did you save so much more fuel than him?
I knew since in the VRS races it was all about fuel saving, so I stuck to my plan, fuel saved, and managed to get that extra lap, which just got me ahead of him after the pit stops.
So you've had some bad luck in this series. We know you've had the speed basically every week. As we come to the second half of the season, this is going to be a good piece of momentum for you with this win. Do you think he's back in the championship conversation?
Yeah, hopefully I could turn something around here for sure. This gives me a lot more confidence. So, yeah, I'm going to give it another run for the championship.
Well, Beckham, congrats on your third win in the PRL here. First of many, or third of many, rather, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, guys.
Beckham just here coming home in first place here, Justin. But we've got the guy who's finished in first place many, many times. Couldn't do it tonight, though. Carl Modoff is with Justin.
Yes, indeed, Carl. First things first, talk us through that final stage of the race, trying to reel back in Beckham Jasir to try and have a setup for the win after leading the first 11 laps.
It was awesome. In my pit stop, I kind of had a decision to make. If I took 21 liter, I'd have to kind of save, but I want, to have track position. Or if I took a little more, I could run flat out. So I decided to take a little more fuel and be able to kind of go on the attack. And man, it was a lot of fun hunting them down instead of watching them save fuel behind me for the first half of the race. So it was cool hunting them down. And then, I thought I was going to have a really good shot the last lap, but I kind of understeered to La Source on the white flag, and that just kind of gave him enough space to where I wasn't able to attack down the Camel Straight, and then I was on incident. I was at 12 incidents, so I was like, how hard could we battle? If I touch, I'm gonna get a drive through. So I think I'll try and settle for P2, and he did a great job. Killer race. That was a lot of fun.
But that leads, of course, to a question of how difficult is it to try and save the fuel as the lead car when knowing everyone else behind you just having different methods to save. How does that play out when trying to equalize that number, if not get further than them on the gas?
Yeah, it's tough. You're always looking at the gaps, It's like, at first I was like, I'm going to run flat out and just see what happens, and then we kind of were getting away, and then Ovando dropped back. I started saving and he caught right up, so it's like, well, I don't want the pace to be so slow that everyone catches us and then there's 10 cars battling for the lead. So it's a hard kind of balance to figure out how fast you want to go and how much fuel you want to save. The guys behind aren't going to pass you because they don't want to lead the race. So it's not too hard to keep the lead. It's just kind of like how much of a gap and how much of a pack do I want to be right behind us. In case something does go wrong, it's kind of nice to spread the pack out a little bit so that way you can still get a strong result.
So at the very least, you chip down the gap to Trepanier after tonight. Focus now for the next time out. What's that thought process for the second half of the season?
Just keep getting good results, If I can keep just barely beating Vincent, who's super tough, and keep eating into it. I think I'm probably only maybe 6 or 5 points behind him now, so it's getting pretty close. And it's a long season. I don't know much about Zolder. I'm sure I've driven it over the years, but I can't really recall it too well. So next week will be exciting, fun, kind of interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, just consistent, strong results for the season, and we'll see how it goes.
Well, congratulations on the podium today, Carl. Good job.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Have a great night.
Carl Modoff at P2.
We will get to talk to one more driver because at the end of the race, after the results came across, after everybody finished, we did get penalties for Dominic Olivier and for Simon Theriault. So Kwok Ninh, an 11th place finish on the track, becomes a 9th place finish in the results. Finishing P3 at Spa in the Spa-24, you got to feel pretty good about a top 10 here.
Yeah, I was kind of worried because we ran the Ferrari for Spa-24, so I didn't know how good I would do with the Porsche, but I guess I did apparently pretty good. Just got to keep the Porsche a lot more smoother than the Ferrari to, not spin the rear end going into T10 and T11.
So if I'm not mistaken, you've joined the Radical Fix series, right? The Radical Fix series in the PRL as well, one of the non-broadcasted series, or the non-broadcasted series. Has that helped you at all in this series? And do you think you can get a win there as well?
Well, I joined mid-season, but I may not be there for the whole entire races just because I'm pretty busy on Thursdays. But when I get the chance, I will race on Thursday because my teammate's in there. The Radical is just a different car to drive, really. But all in all, it was my first race, actually, and I didn't think I did really good until I self-spun myself. But it's just a different car to drive, But pretty fun car.
Well, Kwok, congrats on a top 10 here. Great result in this series, and we'll see you next week. Still in Belgium, but it's Zolder.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
I will. Probably not as good of a night as Quack will, but definitely a good night indeed. That's going to be about it for us here, Justin. 2 very, very interesting races, both of them with a lot of drama on lap 1. But next week, we trade the normalcy of Spa with yet another Belgian track, Zolder. Definitely a track that you see used, but not a track that's especially popular with the drivers, I don't think, and definitely more of a wild card than Spa.
I mean, on the bright side, there's a short distance to drive from the Spa to Zolder. The thing is, though, when it comes to Zolder, lots of potential for some passes, lots of potential for some off tracks, with Klein Chicane in particular. That's a major stack-up spot. The run through Canal Bach that can spark things up in the opening sector. And don't forget the chaos that can happen up through 9 and 10. A lot can happen when it comes to Zolder, to say the very minimum.
And you want to know how close things got on incident points here at Spa? Karl Modhoff, the guy who finished second, 12 incident points out of 13 at the finish of the race. That's how close it was, but we will see you here same time, same place for more GT3 fixed and sprint action. For now, I've been Joey Tebben, Justin Prince has been Justin Prince, our producer has been Hugo Luis, and until we see you next time, so long.